Madsen with you. The 49ers just scored a touchdown to make it a 10-point game. They went for two. By the way, they should have went for two earlier in the game. They didn't do it that time. They do this time. They don't get it. They're down by 10, kicking the ball back off to the Chiefs. They'll try to go onside, but still down by 2 scores with a minute left. This game is all but over in Santa Clara. The Chiefs come in to Levi's Stadium. They will beat the 49ers. They'll improve to 6-0. The 49ers once again are back below 500 at 3-4 on the 2024 season. Guys, it was an ugly game. There's major injury concerns for the 49ers. Brandon Aiyuk left the game at halftime with a right knee injury. Did not look good. We will hear from Kyle Shanahan in a little bit, I'm sure. Deebo Samuel left the game with an illness, and he wasn't effective in the first half, even when he was really playing. Didn't play that many snaps. You were already without Juwan Jennings. Of course, no Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions, all of them on the Kansas City side of the 50. And that might have been the worst onside kick attempt by Mitch Wisnowski as well. It doesn't even go 5 yards. That perfectly encapsulates what this game was for the 49ers. Guys, welcome in Kyle and Sterling. My name is Mark with you. 28-18 will be the final. Kansas City knocks off the 49ers.
They're just better, dude. That's just a better team. They're not more talented, but they do everything right. And when they do make a mistake on either side of the ball, they do everything right on the other side of the ball to kind of make up for it. We talk about complementary football all the time with the 49ers. There's not a better team in the NFL at that than the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have a Niners team that we've talked about it on various overtimes this year, the kind of mistakes that they make that lead to their losses. And when you make a mistake or you have a miscue against the Chiefs, they're going to make you pay for it 100% of the time. That's what we saw today.
This sucks. The Niners watched a team that we consider a Super Bowl favorite, walked into their home. They got in their bed, slept in their bed, and was like, wow, this is our home now. San Francisco looked terrible today. Brock Purdy throws 3 interceptions, 1 in the red zone. I don't care if it was Ronnie Bell's fault or not. Get him out of here as well. San Francisco's offense was choked out by Steve Spagnuolo's defense all day long. I get no Deebo and Brandon Aiyuk is out and no Christian McCaffrey. I'm sorry. Do you not still have Kyle Shanahan? Do you not have Brock Purdy, who was an MVP favorite last year? And did you not have a quarterback this year in Brock Purdy that was playing his best football? Do you not have George Kittle and the second leading rusher in football? I'm sorry. All the good vibes that were practiced this week went out the door as soon as the ball was kicked off. I get it, it's Kansas City. But this was an assessment game for San Francisco. Just how good are you? Did you really get right against the Seahawks? Oh, first place. Now you're back in second place. And if you're lucky, you're going to be in third place if the Cardinals win tomorrow. It was a terrible, terrible game for San Francisco. The defense was good enough to win. The offense did not come to play for one single snap. Terrible.
Yeah, it was ugly, and it is officially a final. Final score at Levi's Stadium, Kansas City, the Chiefs. They are winners 28-18 was the final score. You guys hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was not smooth from the beginning. The 49ers scored first, but it was more offensive woes early in this game. There were some red zone issues. I mean, the Niners, through their first 5 drives on offense, had 2 first downs, and one of them was via a penalty by Kansas City. The Niners, through 5 drives, had 1 first down of their own doing. Like, that's how ugly it was in this one. And if it wasn't for the Niners defense giving them the ball in good field position spots, they wouldn't have scored any points, really, in the first half. They ultimately go down, get on the doorstep of the end zone just before halftime, end up kicking a field goal there, only down 8 somehow. I mean, guys, if it wasn't for the defense, I think this is what you're getting at, Sterling. If it was not for the defense and how well they played and forcing turnovers themselves, I mean, Patrick Mahomes did not throw for a touchdown, threw for 154 yards, completed a little over 50% of his passes, and turned the ball over twice. 2 interceptions. If it wasn't for the defense stepping up, the Niners could have lost this game by like 25 points. That's how this game felt. The fact that it was a 1-possession game for the majority of the second half, honestly, amazing. It was a miracle. It's like, a game of basketball where you feel like you're playing from behind, you're down by 20, you put together one nice stretch of play, and suddenly you're only down 12 at half, and you're thinking, man, we've been outplayed by a mile, but we're in this thing. That's what it felt like for the 49ers, but they never really got into any sort of rhythm, and then their 3 turnovers were their undoing. There was also more special teams woes, a long punt return by Mecole Hardman that set the Chiefs up on the doorstep of scoring as well. We could find issues with a number of different areas in this Niner game, and through 7 weeks, that just might be the story of the Niners season. You can find issues all over the place, and today was no different.
It felt like the wheels came off early, where we talked all week about how the Chiefs have ownership over the Niners, and Shanahan's 0-4 and the 2 Super Bowls and this and that. And the Niners get that stop on the fake punt.
Yeah.
And that you look at it and you go, oh, watch out. Like here come the Niners. They get the stop. I would have bet $1 million that I don't have $1 million. I'd have bet my house that if you had told me, hey, the Chiefs are going to have a 4th and 1 from their own, what was it, their own 40 on 45. Chiefs are going to have a 4th and 1 from their own 40, and they're going to fake punt. Be like, oh, that's a first down.
Yeah, they're getting that.
And then they don't. You go, oh, this might go a little different. And then bam, interception. And it's the next play. The next play. Yeah. And it's that Jeff Schwartz said to Willard and Dibbs, there's that like over preparation when a team has beat you that many times. There are so many things that you're trying to do. You're trying to not make a mistake, and you're trying to overcompensate. And that's what it felt like Brock was doing today. I thought Brock Purdy was terrible. And I thought it was because it started on that throw. There was no window there. That wasn't, oh man, the Chiefs really disguised that coverage or whatever it is. But he just was trying to throw to windows that weren't there all game. And maybe it's something Spags did with the Chiefs defense. To me, it looked like a 49ers quarterback trying to make too many plays and trying to overcompensate when they really didn't need to.
We tricked ourselves, or the fans did, that this game was going to be different. Ricky Pearsall's back. Debo's healthy. It seemed that way before the game started, and he wasn't actually sick. Aiyuk is healthy. He kind of got right a couple weeks ago, and this one's going to be different. We may actually beat Kansas City this time, and back to Kyle's point, that fake punt that San Francisco special teams, which is still one of the worst in football, they get to stop. You go, maybe it might be different after all. This is a great opportunity for San Francisco to score a touchdown, put the Chiefs on their heels. Then, like Kyle said, the Brock interception. Brock Purdy was locking on to targets, his first read all day. He was throwing into non-existent windows. He was underthrowing passes. I get it. It's a deep ball. That Cowan catch and that Kittle deep ball, if he throws those in stride, which it's much harder to do than I'm saying it is, I'm the starting quarterback in the NFL, those are touchdown passes if those are leading his receivers downfield. We're talking San Francisco maybe leading late in this game and Kansas City driving to maybe win. That's the difference of a Mahomes and the Niners team currently. The Chiefs make the right play at the right time every single opportunity they have, whether it's defense, offense, special teams. It doesn't matter. They are over-prepared to a point of they are so calm when the moment comes, they're ready for it. And this dates back to last year's Super Bowl, 4 in 2019. It doesn't matter. Whenever San Francisco plays Kansas City, they shrivel up and the moment's too big for them. There is no space in my mind where with Kyle Shanahan at the helm, I ever think San Francisco is going to beat Kansas City. It's just never going to happen. They are terrible against KC. They were terrible today. In Shanahan's offense, he needs to go to Spagnuolo and start calling him daddy. That's how bad this was. It was terrible on almost every single down.
Okay, let's be fair about the offense. You guys are right. I mean, it was a disgusting performance today. The offense was flat out bad. Going into the game, you're without McCaffrey, of course. You're without Juwan Jennings. You find out in game, or you found out earlier, but you game plan forward all week that you were going to have Deebo Samuel. He comes down with an illness. The Fox crew saying he came down with the illness during warmups. He probably was feeling it leading into the game. They had a little bit of a better idea, probably. Yeah. But he plays a little bit in the first half. He finishes with what? How many touches did he even touch the ball at all? No, he did not touch the ball at all.
3 snaps.
Yeah, no touches. And then he does not play the entire second half, not even a snap in the second half. So essentially no Deebo for the entire game as well. And then just before the half, on one of his nicer moments of the season, a really nice catch over the middle, Aiyuk right knee buckles, and he does not play the entire second half. And I'm keeping an eye out right now. Kyle Shanahan about to address the media, and I'm sure the first question that he will be asked is an update on Brandon Aiyuk. It did not look pretty. I don't know what you guys are all expecting. I'm kind of preparing for the worst because it did not look good for Brandon Ayuk's right knee. To be fair to the offense, you're without McCaffrey. Sure. You're without Debo. Sure. You're without Aiyuk. You're without Juwan Jennings. I'm not saying it excuses this poor performance, but this is also an offense that was running out there with Ricky Pearsall, who had made his NFL debut tonight. Maybe the loudest roar from the Niners fans at Levi's was when he made his first catch. Also out there consistently in the second half. Jacob Cowing, also out there consistently in the second half, is Chris Conley. Ronnie Bell out there. Like, this was a skeleton crew. Yeah. Of weapons offensively for the 49ers in the second half. That does not excuse anything, but it does, I think, impact how I view the way the offense played. It was bad, but you're also doing it with those weapons against this defense. That's not going to be easy no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. It was bad before Aiyuk went down, though.
True.
But on the other hand, to your point, it looked like they started to figure some things out there in the second half. And that's what I find a little bit frustrating about this. Is Aiyuk goes down, and the 49ers got so much more creative offensively. They got so much more creative with what they're doing with their run game. That first rushing touchdown that Purdy had, where they pulled the two guards, and then he keeps it behind Jake Brendel, who's running over the linebacker.
Quarterback sneak I've ever seen.
Brilliant. And then they're doing all this stuff with different motion to get Jordan Mason going against the grain, and it's all working. It's like, where was this 30 minutes ago? Where was this when this was meaningful? Because you had wide receivers on the field who could separate a little bit. But by the time I told Mark here in the studio, it felt in the second half a lot like the NFC title game against the Eagles, where, okay, nice run, but they can't throw it. I didn't think they could meaningfully throw the ball and complete enough passes down the stretch to win that game. And maybe if you have one of Brandon Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel out there, you can concoct enough offense to win it. But I still just I think it starts with the quarterback. He wasn't good today. Yep. And it was just exacerbated by what you're talking about is the lack of offensive weapons. But Sterling, I don't know about you. I'm not sure how much it would have really mattered.
I don't think it would have mattered at all, to be honest with you. Ricky Pearsall's back out there. Great. Story's incredible. He looked good at the end of the game, which maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't to some. I do not want to see Ronnie Bell take another snap for this team. I just can't. How many times does he have to cost this team on certain plays? Drop passes against the Rams. Probably would have won you that one. Miscommunication today cost you a pick. Does it cost you the game? Maybe not, but it's just the continual issues, and I get you have to play with what you have, and what they had was it's bare bones. It was guys that had never played before and rookies that have not even had their first catch in the NFL like Cowing did until today. But I don't think it would have mattered. I don't even think if Christian McCaffrey was healthy, they would have won this game. That's how bad I think Kyle Shanahan got outcoached. And we've talked all year long about how, once they get CMC back and Pearsall's back, and if they can just get healthy, you are under 500. You are 3-4. It's not just, you lost to KC, they're a good team. No, you played so bad early, a loss like this, well, it's not catastrophic. It is season altering. Now you have to be Dallas next week to hopefully go into the bye week at 500 for a team you want to claim to be a Super Bowl contender. There ain't no way in hell I would consider the 2024 San Francisco 49ers a Super Bowl contender. If Brock Purdy's going to play his worst ball against the best opponent he's played all year long, the running game just did not work until that fourth, maybe late third quarter. It was terrible all day, and that's Shanahan's bread and butter. Everything San Francisco's offense tried to do was stopped almost on every single play by Steve Spagnuolo. Is this guy a genius? I think so, but my goodness, this is the biggest game of the year. You want to prove you're a contender, beat the Chiefs. You watch the Lions go into Minnesota and beat those guys earlier today. Why can't San Francisco defend their own home court and beat the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs? Chiefs are better. They're less talented by far, in my opinion, besides a quarterback and defensive line, maybe. It's just continual out-coaching every single time these two teams link up.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned maybe the difference in talent in favor of Kansas City at one spot. It's at quarterback, but let's also not pretend that this is just a Mahomes masterclass. Mahomes was
He threw 2 picks.
Yeah, he was. I mean, 16 for 27, 154, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and you lose by 10 points.
Had the backbreaking 33-yard scramble.
An incredible run. He gets around. He gets around Fred Warner. D. Winters over pursues. Mahomes gives him the little stutter step. He flies by him, runs down the sideline for 33 yards. It was one of the more incredible Patrick Mahomes runs that I've ever seen, and there's a number of them. It's just what he does. But Mahomes was not great for the majority of this football game. You still give up nearly 30 points, 28-18. Not that the defense was the issue, but despite that, like, you could understand it maybe if Mahomes goes out and he shrugs off his slow start to the season and he just comes out, throws for 350, 3 tuds, doesn't turn the ball over, and you get outclassed by the best football player on the planet. Okay, that's understandable. But no, he was largely bad in this game. Turned the ball over twice. Did not throw a single touchdown. On the year now, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, yet the Chiefs are 6-0. It's what you guys are getting at. What the Chiefs have excelled at and what they have absolutely mastered is one of the most important skills in the NFL. It is winning when you're not playing your best football. It is finding ways to win ugly. They are the best at it, bar none. They've played 6 games. How many of those games have been a complete 60 minutes for them? Like, almost none of them. Like, they've been bad on offense for the majority of the season, yet you look at it, they're 6-0. I've seen all these tweets. The Chiefs got to be the fakest 6-0 team in the NFL. That 6-0 is real because you win ugly. That's the kind of games that you get in the postseason. The Niners, meanwhile, when they play ugly, when they don't play up to their best, they always find a way to lose those games. And today wasn't just them not playing their best, it was playing darn near their worst.
Yeah, on top of that, I think the 49ers in particular have a problem with the Steve Spagnuolo Chiefs defense.
No doubt.
Because so much of what they do is just man coverage, right? We heard that all today on the broadcast is man coverage, and they run this much man, and this is what they do. That's man. And the Niners don't have a bunch of dudes that can separate. There's a problem in the Super Bowl, too. Debo had, 13 targets in the Super Bowl and 3 catches? Because he just can't get away from the Chiefs' corners. And one of them went down. I forget his name, but number 13 came in for the Chiefs, and the Niners immediately start picking on him.
That was the cowing long reception. That could have been a touchdown to Sterling's point if Purdy puts air underneath it.
Yeah. And so they start picking on that guy, and it's like, okay, this is great. But Shanahan is not, he's not a passing game designer. That's not his bag. And I think when you combine that with a receiving core that is not great at creating separation, especially with Brandon Aiyuk out, you're just going to kind of run into this. They can sell out to stop the run, which they did all day because they don't have to worry about anything happening in the passing game, except with George Kittle, apparently. And I think that's why this is going to continue to be a trend. And I don't see the Niners beating this version of the Chiefs until they have some guys who can separate from man coverage and force the Chiefs to do something different.
During the offseason, Kyle Shanahan, the way he sold not improving the offensive line, outside of Dominic Pooney, was, we'll get some weapons. Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing. Okay, cool. You got your weapons, right? You drafted guys in case Debo or Aiyuk or the stars you're paying get hurt. Oh, they can come in and replace them or, help you out in case someone's not going to play for a week or two. But when they've had those guys healthy, and I get no Christian McCaffrey, but he hasn't played all year long. So the adjustment period time, the grace is over with. You got to win with what you got.
Yep.
Against the Cardinals, the defense continually stops the Cardinals offense. And the last drive of the game against the Cardinals, defense gets a stop. Cardinals kick the field goal. The offense throws a pick. Defense did their job. Against Seattle, the offense, okay, it's better. He scored 30 points, but late in that game, it takes a Renardo Green interception to put the offense near the red zone to score a game-winning touchdown. In this game, the defense continually picks up the offensive slack. I get Aiyuk gets injured. Debo doesn't play, but how many times this year do we have to watch Kyle Shanahan's offense? For whatever reason why, whether it is because CMC's out or because Purdy isn't playing his best game like in this one, we have seen this defense, despite a rookie defensive coordinator, despite no Javon Hargrave, despite a terrible Devondre Campbell, and a hodgepodge of safeties back there, whether it's Odom, Mustafa Ufunga, they continually, in the last 3 weeks, have made plays to pick up the offense. And the offense never has an answer outside of one drive against the Seattle Seahawks last week. The The offense is not doing their job on a continual basis, despite how loaded they are. They're bad on third downs. They're terrible in the red zone. At what point do we say, Nick Sorensen, clap it up, brother. Your defense did its job holding Mahomes to under 200 yards, getting 2 takeaways. Brian Schneider, terrible punt coverage, but you get the fake punt block. Great. Man, you do your job for part of the game, and the offense continually falls short. Kyle, after the Cardinals game, we talked about that this is on Kyle Shanahan. This game in itself, the offense, Kyle Shanahan's unit, did not do their job. Borderline for the 3rd consecutive week when it mattered most.
Yeah, and also when you have all those offensive weapons or all those offensive issues, you have to capitalize on the few opportunities that you do get. And coming into this game, this was, especially once you found out that Deebo Samuel battling an illness, and you could tell in that first half that he wasn't going to be much of a factor, even if he, quote unquote, played snaps, even though he was never touching the ball. This was going to be a moment for Aiyuk to step up. I mean, you're getting paid $30 million a year, buddy. You're going to have to step up. Down Juwan already. Deebo Samuel is extremely limited. Of course, still no Christian McCaffrey. And we know what happened to Aiyuk just before halftime. Suffered a knee injury. Doesn't look great. We'll get an update from Kyle Shanahan shortly, and we will give you that update. Don't have anything on it just yet. But Aiyuk dropped what would have been potentially a touchdown, a long touchdown catch in the first half as well. Would have made it 10-7 Niners in the second quarter. Might have changed the game. That was probably Purdy's best throw of the day. It goes out as an incompletion because Aiyuk maybe lost it in the sun, took his eye off it. I don't know. But he dropped that one, and it's sad that it comes down to like one play, make or miss. You got to make this play, otherwise it's a bad day or whatever the case is. That was one where if you're Brandon Aiyuk, you're down all these other weapons, you got to step up and make that play, and he couldn't squeeze it.
Kyle Shanahan, speaking with reporters now, said that they're worried about an ACL with Aiyuk. Nothing confirmed yet. But given the nature of the injury and how quickly he was ruled out.
Not surprised.
Yeah, not great. So nothing confirmed yet, but the 49ers, according to Kyle Shanahan, worried that it is an ACL injury for Brandon Aiyuk.
Which, now it's not going to get any easier. CMC is not coming back, it seems like, for the next 2 or 3 weeks after the bye week, fingers crossed. Juwan Jennings is hopefully back next week. I get Deebo will hopefully not be sick against the Dallas Cowboys as well next week. And Ricky Pearsall made his debut, but the hope was you're not asking Ricky Pearsall to replace one of your guys like Brandon Aiyuk. You want to combine those two players and have 2 receivers that can separate alongside Juwan Jennings on third downs as your number 2 tight end, your big slot receiver, if you will. Then you have Deebo, the gadget guy, the star. Your offense is now down 2 of your main stars, your all-pro receiver and the reigning offensive player of the year. And for as bad as the offense has played this year, why should I have any hope things are going to change?
Yeah.
In fact, they're probably going to get worse. And the Dallas Cowboys, they have their backs against the wall, and I get it. It's 1 week time. We have no idea what next week looks like. We're on Sunday today, but it's like the hope of, well, it'll get better soon. No, it's like this thing might get a lot worse before it gets better at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it might. So final score in Santa Clara, Niners fall to the Chiefs 28-18. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Kyle Shanahan speaking post-game as we speak right now, saying, quote, the Niners fear that Brandon Aiyuk could have suffered a torn ACL. We'll, of course, know more tomorrow and as the week goes along, so keep it locked here on 95.7 The Game. But let's go out to the phone lines. A lot of you want to join the conversation. We'll go to you. If you hang out on hold, stick with us. We will get you on the air here on Overtime this evening on 95.7 The Game. Up first is Richard in Milpitas. Richard, what's up? You're on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. How you doing, Richard?
I call the tube shots between the two teams, one punching the 49ers, the other guy punching back. Instead of punching back, he should just kind of look at him and say, oh, that was nice, instead of hitting him. And then that guy could have gotten kicked out of the game. But, let the other team instigate you is not very, what's the word for it? Not helpful to the team because they needed you out there. The other thing about the running backs that I noticed the most, the part that they're rookies, and they weren't being aggressive enough in their start the run. They stopped there. They gave the other team a chance to hit them. But if they just ran through it a little bit, they would have gotten 3-4 yards. So that's my hint for the game is those receivers the running backs need to be a little more aggressive and attack those players in front of them a little bit.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Richard. I mean, this is also a Chiefs defense that I think specifically in the second half, guys, was just selling out to stop the run. It's something you were talking about, Kyle. I mean, when the Niners are down Aiyuk, Debo, Jawan, Kittle's really the only reliable pass catcher out there. And they have Trent McDuffie. They have great cornerbacks. They have great defensive backs. You can shut one guy down and then you sell it to stop the run. It makes it really difficult. And even with that, they were getting some chunks in the third quarter on the ground.
At one point, they said on the broadcast that the 49ers were getting hit in the backfield on 75% of their runs. You just can't, there's no, I all due respect to the caller, there's no amount of running hard that's going to help that.
And let's also...
They're stopping because they're trying to go around white jerseys in their face.
Let's also not ignore that Jordan Mason is one of the hardest runners in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you notice they started getting loose when they started doing some misdirection stuff, putting guys in motion. Oh, look. And then there's some holes started to open up and hey, look at that magic. But they just got smoked, man. Like I wish there was, that's kind of the bottom line for me. They just got beat down. And, you know, Sterling, you said earlier, like they want to be a Super Bowl contender. And I think that's the right phrasing. They want to be that. They're not, though. They're not that right now. They have so many levels to get to before they reach that point. I know their pedigree and where we saw them last year. And, oh, they've been 3-5 before and they made it to the NFC title game. Okay, that's all great. But that's not sustainable. That's not a thing that you can just bank on. And they played a team that is a bona fide Super Bowl contender today, and they got outclassed. That's what I got.
They got punched in the mouth.
Repeatedly, a lot of times.
Literally, Trent Williams as well. But the offensive line, I thought, was just being beat up all day long. That was the matchup you look for. Okay, how is Kyle Shanahan's run game going to work against Steve Spagnuolo's run defense? We know the Chiefs have held, outside of week 1, every running back under 100 yards, if not 50 yards. I think Mason was the first running back since Derrick Henry, week 1 against the Ravens, that 50-plus yards on the ground against this Chiefs run defense. Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this has to be the Purdy game. If they're going to win this one, they have to be able to separate with their receivers and be able to beat the Chiefs with their quarterback. And it's just me. Maybe I'm wrong here, but why would you not want to spread the Chiefs out? Get 4 wide, get 5 wide. Everything was, bunched up together. And that first few drives, it was like the Chiefs know what's coming. They're ready to smack you in the mouth. And they did. And San Francisco's offense couldn't do anything. And of course, Aiyuk goes down. And then you get more creative. But the Chiefs just walked in here knowing they were a better team, knowing they've already beaten San Francisco in the biggest stage of them all twice, knowing this year it's not going to be any different. I don't care what the vibes were in practice. Oh, they're feeling good. Everything is a positive atmosphere in Santa Clara today. The sun's out. Who cares? Sundays, when you go on the field, the Kansas City Chiefs, no matter who they're playing in, especially against San Francisco, know they have the upper hand in every single facet of the game. And today it showed. San Francisco, if you want to put a label on them, might be fake. They might be pretenders this year. And that's just the case.
Yeah, and I think also, what the Chiefs are doing is so impressive because I was the one who said it, the Niners' injuries and who you're without and all these key skill guys that aren't playing. And not that that's an excuse for the offense, but it's certainly a factor. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They're dealing with the same thing. Down their starting running back. Down their top 2 receivers. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster now was wide receiver 1. He didn't play basically the entire, the second half, and I think most of the second quarter as well. Obviously, we know about Rashee Rice, who's turning into a star receiver in the NFL. They haven't played with him for 3 weeks now, and he's likely out for the rest of the season. This is also a Kansas City offense who only has their star tight end left, just like the Niners did for the second half of this game, and they put up 28 points, and it wasn't just the greatest quarterback of our generation going crazy. He was bad. They did it with their leading receiver being Noah Gray. 4 catches for 66 yards. Their leading rusher, Kareem Hunt, was on the couch 3 weeks ago. This is an offense that's filled with nobodies. other than Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and Kelce had 4 catches for 17 yards. Now, most of his catches were big third down conversions in those big moments. He's great. The greatest, maybe other than Gronk, receiving tight end in NFL history. He's awesome. I know that. The Niners did a good job on him, but still, this is the Kansas City offense who finds ways to get it done. We talk so much about Spagnuolo versus Shanahan, but we also got to acknowledge the fact that I know that there's Mahomes, and that is a big difference. But this is a Kansas City offense led by Andy Reid, their play caller, who is also consistently getting more out of an injured group than Kyle Shanahan is getting out of his injured group on the Niners side.
Yeah, Mahomes wasn't great today, but he made so many individually brilliant plays, from the 33-yard scramble to the third down conversion where he's getting sacked and gets rid of it to, I think it was Noah Gray for a first down. Like, he just does all these little things that he can play so poorly. And, need this one? Okay, fine. They're going to get this third down. Threw an interception last time out? That's okay. Here's a couple of third downs. Get this ship righted. And that's just kind of the difference. And that's why Patrick Mahomes is one of one in the sport right now, even though he's not playing great this year. Like, his numbers aren't very good, and his numbers, like you said, weren't good today. But he just continually finds ways to win, or finds ways to come up with winning plays. And then you flip to the other side of the ball where the Chiefs defense just is awesome. And it's been awesome for the better. They lost L'Jarius Sneed, and it just didn't matter. Like, they're just that good on that side of the ball that they can withstand this. And the 49ers, on the other hand, struggling defensively. They need their offense to be perfect, and they were not that today.
This was San Francisco's best chance to beat Patrick Mahomes for the first time.
Yep.
He walked into this one having the worst year of his career, worst touchdown percentage, highest interception percentage, worst yards per game, worst rating. He has not been this number one quarterback, the GOAT of this generation, if you will, walking into this game. He's been kind of subpar, but still making, the big play when it matters most. And let's be honest here, DPI in Cincinnati, they probably lose that game. There's the Isaiah Likely 3-touchdown almost game against the Ravens in week 1. The Chiefs have, I don't want to say gotten away with some, but they've been really close to losing some, but they eke these ones out because they're so good at making the right play at the right time. And when I saw Mahomes' stat line, I said, blood in the water, attack him, get home. And it's harder than I'm making it sound like, but it's like, this is the opportunity to jump on Patrick Mahomes and get the dub. And San Francisco just laid down at a certain point offensively and said, you know what? We don't have any fight today. Whether it was Purdy being off his game, which probably his worst game since Christmas last year, They were just off in a game where you're like, this is your best chance to win, and that's never, ever going to get it done in the NFL.
Yeah, no, you're right. 28-18 is the final score. The Niners now 3-4. The Chiefs now 6-0. The Chiefs could very easily have a couple, if not 3 losses on their resume, but the difference is when they play those ugly kind of games, they find ways to win down the stretch, and that has what has cost the Niners in a majority of their losses. They're now 3-4. The Seahawks, as you mentioned earlier, Sterling, have won already today. They were in Atlanta. They got a nice win on the road, so they are now alone in first place in the NFC West ahead of the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, time for a break here on Overtime. When we come back, we got full phone lines. We're coming to you guys next. I see you, Joel and Paul and Mike and Joe and Michael and Rob. We're coming to you on the other side. We will also hear from Kyle Shanahan, who has said the Niners fear Brandon Aiyuk tore his ACL. We will hear Kyle Shanahan's full post-game comments coming up a little bit later on as well. As we continue on Overtime, it's Kyle, Sterling, and Grandy with you. More OT next on 95.7 The Game. in his tenure as 49er head coach. This goes all the way back to the Jimmy Garoppolo era. Of course, you remember the first Super Bowl, but there was also the regular season loss, the 2018 season. That was the game that Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL, if you remember, and then that Niners season was doomed from that point on. Then the Super Bowl loss the following year. You had a regular season loss to the Chiefs at Levi's again 2 years ago. That was Christian McCaffrey's first game as a 49er, although he did not play a full complement of snaps. And then, of course, you know the Super Bowl from 8 months ago. And then you have this regular season loss. 5 straight losses for the 49ers to the Kansas City Chiefs. This one's final score, 28-18. And guys, I'm not sure it was really that close. The Niners scored with a minute to go in the fourth quarter to cut it 2-10. They went for 2 to try to make it a one-possession game. Did not get it. They were down 28-12. And really, even when they were down by 1 score, like at halftime when it was 14-6, it felt like they were down by more like 3 scores. And that was the way the offense felt in this game. They had 1 first down gained by like a completed pass or a run in their first 5 offensive drives. They had 1 other via penalty. It was a DPI against George Kittle. The offense was slow moving the entire game, and that's why I say a 1-score game felt more like a 3-score game, because even when the Niners had been moving the ball, the red zone inefficiency has been so stark. Today it was like tenfold because they couldn't even get the ball in the red zone, and then even when they got in the red zone, they still had all the same issues they've had all season long.
It didn't feel like there was a way they were going to win this game where we were going, for all of the reasons you just listed and then some, where we were going to get on the air today and be like, wow, great win. It felt like it was going to be, okay, they snuck out of there. Okay, didn't play great, but man, hey, the Chiefs really made a couple of mistakes. Oh, hey, Mahomes is really missing his receivers. It was going to be that kind of, there was after the first 4 drives, I did not think we were going to be walking in here going, the 49ers outplayed the Chiefs today. They were going to need mistakes. You said at some point, like halfway through the third quarter, you were like, hey, they might need a defensive touchdown if they're going to get back in this.
And they're sure as hell not going to get a special teams touchdown. So
right, so maybe they can block a field goal and score. After the Mahomes 33-yard run that got him down right at the end of the third quarter where they were going to go up 21-12 if they got a touchdown, because you're going, okay, maybe if they hold them to 3 here, it's 17, maybe you get a couple field goals, maybe you do punch one in. Now you have the lead, but you make it a 2-score game. I don't think the Niners are going to be able to score a touchdown and then either another touchdown or a field goal. I just didn't. I didn't feel like there was any point after. I guess it was after Purdy's interception. That was where I went. Yeah. Okay, they're just, if they win this, it's going to take a minor miracle.
Which one? The third one or second one?
The first one.
Okay.
Yeah, they get the stop on the 4th down, and then boom, give the ball back. Interception is just like, all right, here we go. One of those games. And the Chiefs just didn't make enough mistakes, or the 49ers didn't make them pay for their mistakes. Yeah.
Maybe outside of the 2018 game, it felt like San Francisco was like 1 play away from beating Kansas City, whether it was the Super Bowl in 2019 or even last year going to overtime. And even in the first half of that game in 2022 when Purdy played and CMC made his debut, that game was close at halftime. Hufanga got the pick early, and it felt like, okay, maybe this is the time they get the win, and the wheels fell apart late. But this one just felt like no matter what San Francisco did, they were never going to find some consistency. And it's frustrating to still say that, yet have been really close throughout part of the fourth quarter and been like, man, like if that play goes away, if Purdy only throws 2 picks, like had Purdy not thrown that 3rd interception and McKivitz doesn't get beat when the Chiefs only rush 3, like how do you get home when you got 5 blockers and they only rush in 3? I digress. Just a continual issue right side of the offensive line for San Francisco. But if Purdy only throws that 2nd pick, not the 3rd one, and they score a touchdown, it's like, man, like this game's pretty close. But this one just felt like you're pulling tooth and nail to get every single yard. And it's been a far too common story for San Francisco's offense this year. But this one in particular just felt like every play was I hope it isn't an interception. I hope it isn't a fumble. Can they get some positive yardage? And once again, KC just finds a way to just at the end of the day, take it to San Francisco in every single facet.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys. This was more of an offensive struggle than the defense's issue in this game. But let's not pretend that there weren't also some defensive miscues in this game. Kansas City's first touchdown drive, it happened in the second quarter. They pitched a shutout in the first quarter. Kansas City scores early in the second quarter. But do you remember how that drive ended and how they even got in position to score? Nick Bosa lines up offside, doesn't jump offsides, doesn't try to time the snap and jumps early, lines up offsides on second and 10. Yeah, he D-forwarded it. He lines up offside on second and 10, takes away D. Winter's best play as a pro, where he snuffed out a screen for a loss of 3 yards, made an awesome tackle, would have been 3rd and 13. Instead, it's 2nd and 5. And then guess what happens? Givens jumps early. He's offside. Then you have 12 men on the field from the goal line. They turn all of that into a touchdown. They take the lead. The Niners would trail the rest of the game. I'm not saying all that to say that this was the defense's worst game in a long time. The defense was fine. I mean, Mahomes didn't throw for a touchdown. They picked him off twice. Hard to ask the defense to do much more, but I don't know, for lack of a better term, the mental mistakes, the brain farts, we talk about it on offense. It was also there on defense. And man, Nick Bosa lining up offside. I don't know how that happens as often as it does. And Bosa was good for the most part today, had a sack, had multiple pressures as well. I think his pressure led to the first Mahomes interception in this one as well. He was fine. But that was a big swing moment in this game where he lines up onside, turning a 3rd and 13 into a 2nd and 5 that turns into a touchdown.
Yeah, that was a tough way to start for sure. The other thing you look at with the Niners defense, and just to your point of how well they played, they get the turnover on downs on the first drive, they get an interception, and then a 3-and-out. Cannot start a lot better than that. Then they give up a couple of touchdowns, but the one was a 30-yard touchdown drive because of bad punt coverage.
Yeah.
Which rinse, repeat. Then they go punt, interception, punt, and then they score 2 touchdowns off of 2 49ers interceptions. That one of the last plays came on Kansas City's 34, so nearing the red zone.
Yep.
And then Kansas City's 5.
Yeah.
And that's where your defense can only do so much. Your offense has to finish those drives. And Kansas City took the ball away and then went and finished those drives to put the game away. And that's the difference. That's why they're in a different class in San Francisco right now. You can get the takeaways all you want, but if you're not converting those into points or you're immediately giving the ball back, it doesn't matter. So all of that is to say, Mark, I agree with you. I thought their defense was really good today. They complimentary football, right? We talk about it all the time. The Niners offense didn't hold up their end of the bargain, dude.
Can I argue it's not that San Francisco lost this game? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think they were going to win this game, but it's how they lost this game. It's the offense taking a massive step back. It's the red zone regressing to what it was early on this year. It's the turnovers. It's the Brock Purdy interceptions. It's the offensive line not being able to run the football till halfway through the third quarter. It's this no creativity offensively until your star receiver goes out. It's this very questionable way in which the offense has seemingly found itself playing on a continual basis this year. And then the defense, to me, played winnable football.
Yeah.
And I think really whether it was Steve Wilkes or Robert Saleh or Nick Sorensen, every time they've played Kansas City, the defense has played winnable football minus 2 drives late in the game. Yep. Like San Francisco's defense has, for the most part, been able to hold Mahomes at bay, waiting for the offense to come alive. And the offense never comes alive, or when it gets a lead, then it goes silent. And in this one, San Francisco had a 3-point lead and never had it again. It was simply just, we scored early, but can never seem to put back-to-back plays together. You hit a couple home runs here or there, but even then, Purdy underthrows some passes that should have been touchdowns. I don't think it's that San Francisco lost this game that concerns me or bothers me. I think it's how they lost this game. I still have no idea through 6 weeks or 7 weeks now who the Niners are. Are you the team that beat Seattle last week or 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football prime time? Or are you this team that is turnover prone, can still get takeaways, but the offense can't score continually. I have no idea through half a season now who San Francisco is.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people in the building know it either. You might have had belief for as long as you can, but you get to a point where you're 7 games into the season, you're darn near halfway done, and you're under 500. It's hard to continue to have that belief, and I think that's where the Niners might be facing that reality at this point. Let's go back out to the phone lines here on Overtime, 888-957-9570. Kyle, Sterling, Grandy with you here on 95.7 The Game. Up next is Joel in Anaheim. What's up, Joel? You're on 95.7 The Game. How you feeling after that loss, Joel?
Yes, sir. Can't even disagree with last caller. He mentioned a lot of things I wanted to talk about. This team has no identity. And you know what? At this time of the year, if you have no identity, that's what your identity is. SF 28, KC 18. Oh, my God. How can you even let that happen? First of all, first-time caller, avid listener, Bill Walsh is rolling in his fucking grave. I'm sorry.
Oh, thanks. You can't say that, Joel.
You called it. That's really well done.
You can't say that, Joel.
In the back.
Cam's got it for us in the back. But Bill Walsh rolling in his grave. I mean, that offense was pretty ugly. Maybe he is 28-18, and I'm sure he's a little upset that the Niners' perfect record in Super Bowls was also snapped by Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is Sterling hit the nail on the head a little bit ago. This is the problem here. This isn't an isolated performance. Like, this isn't just to this year. This is a I'm sorry, I super lost my train of thought. Hit the nail on the head, and I don't
Continual problem.
Yeah, it's just a real issue. Sorry, guys.
Well, I think really
Totally derailed.
what it is simply just that what's happening isn't new. It's the same thing every single week, whether it's week 1 against the Jets, which they won that game, but it wasn't like a big, what a dominant win. It was, okay, we're looking pretty good. Week 2, you lose against the Vikings. They lost today for the first time, but they're still a seemingly really good team, a great defense so far. Could have won that game for sure. Got a couple takeaways. Then you blow a game against the Rams. Then you blow a game against the Cardinals. And you beat the Patriots. They're terrible. They suck. I mean, really, San Francisco has no defining win outside of beating Seattle on Thursday Night Football. And some could even argue that Seattle is kind of in the same boat San Francisco is. They pass the ball a ton. They don't run the football. Seattle's trying to find themselves as well, despite winning one more game than San Francisco has. So it's like the problem San Francisco have been there since this year has begun, and they're not going away no matter how many more games they play. It is a continual, constant issue. Third down, red zone. It doesn't matter what it is. This offense cannot put the ball in the end zone. They scored 18 points. They had 12 points going into the fourth quarter. 12 points. With Brock Purdy as the quarterback playing his best ball ever coming into this game, right? Jordan Mason, a second leading rusher in football. Brandon Aiyuk, who I know got hurt. You thought you had Debo. You didn't have Debo. Pearsall's back off the injury. Jawan Jennings. You still got George Kittle. There are teams that have one weapon that can score more points than 18 against this Chiefs team. The Falcons had this team beat. The Bengals, who were terrible to begin the year, had this team beat. Come on. It's so frustrating to watch this team. The potential they can reach is still, maybe not this year, but walking into the year a Super Bowl champion. They can do that. And they have played so far below the expectations set by themselves due to their past play. It's almost sickening. It's like when you watch the game on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, you're like, do I even want to put myself through this? This could be awesome, but it could also be some of the worst football this team has played since 2020. That's how bad this has been.
Yeah, It has been ugly, and it's at a point where, Kyle Shanahan saying earlier today, post-game, and we're going to hear the full Kyle Shanahan comments a little bit later on, that they fear it's a torn ACL. you're also getting to a point where it feels like a 2020 season just because of all the injuries that you're dealing with as well. I mean, I know you expect McCaffrey back at some point, hopefully making progress, but it's all kind of, uncertain, and we don't really know all the details. If what the Niners are fearing of Aiyuk is true, he's done for the season. You've already had games where you missed Kittle. You've had a game where you missed Deebo Samuel. He essentially didn't play today either. Like, this is feeling a little bit like that as well, although, of course, you still have a lot of season ahead of you, and you don't really have a ton of season-ending injuries. You just had a bunch of things that have kind of thwarted your momentum so far this season. So we'll see how that continues to develop. But you are right, Sterling. It does have that 2020 kind of feeling to it where you tune in on any given Sunday, any given Monday, any given Thursday, and you might just be so disgusted that you don't want to watch the rest of the football game. 888-957-9570. Back out to the phone lines. Up next is Paul in San Jose who wants to talk about Brock Purdy and the offense. What's up, Paul? You're on overtime. How you doing? Paul, you there?
Hey, Paul.
Paul, going once, going twice. All right, call us back, Paul. 888-957-9570. Up next is Michael in the East Bay. Michael, thanks for holding. How you doing? Michael, are you there?
Looking like San Francisco's offense.
What is going on out there? All right, we'll go back to the phones in just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think anything encapsulates this game better than the last 4 plays on the play-by-play sheet. It is 2-point conversion attempt. Brock Purdy pass to Ricky Pearsall is incomplete. Attempt fails. Mitch Wishnowsky kicks onside 4 yards from San Francisco's 35 to 39. Ball declared dead. Patrick Mahomes kneels. Ball game over. Those are the last 4. That's perfect. It just, the Niners tripping over themselves, failing a 2-point conversion, the worst onside kick I've ever seen in my life, and the Chiefs just come on the field and just, okay, here we go, kneel. Okay, this game's over. Goodbye now.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Anytime.
Okay. So, no. 49ers... No, okay. Well, this question is for Kyle, not for Sterling. 49ers down 14-6 early in the third quarter. They drive down after the Deommodore Lenoir interception. Yeah. Demo, by the way, maybe the best Niner today.
Really good.
He was
really
awesome. Brock Purdy, the unique quarterback sneak that you were talking about earlier, Kyle, he gets in. Niners make it a 2-score game. Mm-hmm. Or a 2-point game. Sorry, 14-12. It's a 2-point game. Can someone answer this question for me? And this is for everybody on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. Our callers as well. Kyle, and I know, Sterling, you refused my question. I'll let you answer it, though, because I'm a nice guy. Why didn't they go for 2? I know that they kicked the extra point and missed it. Even if you could guarantee me a made extra point, why aren't you going for 2 to tie the game? You're down by 2 at that point. Mm-hmm. The logic says you're probably going to need a 2-point conversion at some point. Mm-hmm. And the smart move, for my money, the smart move is go for the 2-point conversion as early as you possibly can in order to figure out what you need moving forward, right? Like, if you go for 2 and you don't get it, you're still down by 2. Kansas City goes and scores a touchdown. You know you're still going to need to get 2 points anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't kick the 2-point conversion, you just get the extra point. Down by 1, they go down, score a touchdown. They're up by 8. You need the 2-point conversion there anyway. So why not go for the 2 ASAP to figure out what you need the rest of the game? If you still need 2 scores or if you only need 1 score. That made no sense to me not going for 2 down 2.
I'm with you 100%. I'm sure there's somebody who, with math and stuff, that'll tell you, well, 10:39 is too early to do that. But I'm with you, man. Go for 2. Go for the 2 now. They may not. Your defense is playing well. Like, if you tie this, a field goal might put you in a really good spot to try and win this game. Like, that's kind of the thought process I would have. And to your point, go down. You're going to be down 9 if you don't get it, and you're going to know you need 2 scores anyway. Like, you want to know that as early as possible. It's just, it's what you laid out. So the reason they didn't do that is because Kyle Shanahan is an old school football coach. He came up in the mud of the 90s 49ers and the late 90s Broncos with Mike Shanahan. And the thought process is, well, you kick the extra point here because then you can tie it with a 2-point conversion. He's basically playing for overtime. Like that's what you're just extending the game as much as possible.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying.
It's silly.
You said you're going to tie it with a 2-point conversion. Then do the 2-point conversion now. That essentially still ties the game. That ties it right now.
We're sitting out here and they score and we were like, they got to go for 2. And you went, I don't think he's going to go.
Well, no, you asked me, odds Kyle Shanahan kicks the extra point here. And I was like, even for Kyle, I don't know. And then they tried out the extra point unit, and then he misses it.
The football gods punished them for that.
That's exactly right.
Crazy.
Which I'm not going to crush Kyle for.
Do it.
He has his third kicker this year, right? Right, he's Anders Carlson, who essentially gave them the game against the Packers in the playoffs last year. Mark, you would know me yelling some thing to the TV. We're not going to repeat on the air right now, but like his third kicker after he watches kickers get hurt in back-to-back weeks. Moody and Wright both go down, and like I get it. You want to take the points. I get the train of thought, but I know Kyle, you said it was silly. It's not silly. It's stupid. Just take the points. Like why is there this continual, well, once we get into overtime, then I'll really pull this out of the bag. Or later in the game, when I hope I can get into the red zone, which is no promise against the Chiefs defense, as you saw in this game, why would you even risk that? Great teams. Hell, the Chiefs in this one went for a fake punt on their own side of the field on the very first drive of the game. Oh, that's too early for that. If it's too early for a 2-point conversion to tie a game up, it's not too early for a fake punt on your own side of the field? Like, the Chiefs in this game were going for the kill early. They wanted to score points and put San Francisco on their heels, knowing San Francisco's offense has not been playing their best football. And when they get to the red zone, it's whatever happens. It is a nightmare for San Francisco's offense. But why? Every year we get this same conversation. In the Super Bowl last year, kick the field goal, take the points. No, go for the touchdown, man. Why do you even want to risk Mahomes getting on the field? And you watch Mahomes and Kelsey in that game like, did they go for a field goal? Wow, we have a chance to win. Like, at that point in time, why are you playing, for a field goal? What do field goals win you? Nothing. And with this team, field goals aren't even promised. And with your third-string kicker, hell, that guy's not even good. And you want to risk a PAT for a point that actually is not even going to matter when it's all said and done? Just be aggressive. I'd rather this team go for every fourth down the entire game than risk trotting out a third-string kicker. Guys hate it.
He made a 55-yarder, though. First point of the game.
Smoked it. Just drilled it. It was
crazy. The 13-yarder he had later.
What's crazy is if Matthew Wright does not get hurt Thursday in Seattle, the Niners don't attempt that 55-yard field goal attempt because Matthew Wright does not have the leg.
Yeah.
And then Carlson made it.
Yeah. And then missed
Which
the extra
gave
point.
Shanahan false hope he'd make the PAT.
Oh, God.
I asked this on the internet, and it's only part facetious. Given their punt coverage issues, I feel like anything outside of their own 35, 4th and 2 or shorter, I'm just going for it.
Yeah.
Especially when you have your weapons. Like maybe it's a little different like the second half today.
Yeah.
But if you got Kittle and Debo and Aiyuk, why not?
Yeah. Well, and I would love to say that this is isolated to today, but no, even when they've been healthy, that's been a Kyle Shanahan problem.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's just the lack of aggressiveness with all those dudes. Go for 2 every time. Not every time. That's crazy. But in that spot, to me, you have to go for 2. You have to tie the game. You have all the momentum. And even if you kick the extra point, you're still down. So go for 2. You don't get it, whatever. But you do get it, and all of a sudden the entire complexion of the game changes.
Yeah.
And instead they doink the extra point.
There was one moment, I'm trying to find where it was, where the Niners had a 4th and 1 or a 4th and short, and we were thinking maybe they think about going for it. They don't. They punt the ball away. Mm-hmm. Mitch Wishnowsky, an awesome punt. They downed, I think, around the 10 or something like that.
The
8. Defense forces a 3 and out. They get the ball back near midfield. So you and I was debating in that moment, I want my offense to go for it there. It's 4th and short. You're playing against the Super Bowl, the 2-time defending champs. Be aggressive. Get a first down. But Shanahan decided to punt, put the faith in his defense. In that moment, it turned out to be the right decision, I suppose, because you got a 3 and out, and you got the ball right back, and you actually gained a few yards on the exchange. So I can get some of those moments. However, just because one way worked doesn't mean necessarily that the other way wouldn't have worked. If you go for it on 4th and short and you get the first down, that's better than giving the ball back to Mahomes no matter what happens. So there is a give and take here, and I get it, but I think there is also a lot of the blame in this one that goes to Kyle Shanahan, not just on decisions and whether he goes for it or not, or he goes for the 2-point conversion or not, but we also got to talk about the offense and just general lack of creativity. I mean, 888-957-9570. We got to hit a quick break, but when was the last time any of you Niner fans out there went, wow, what a play drawn up by Kyle Shanahan, man. That was amazing. I haven't felt that in a really long time, and we can talk about that coming up on the other side as well. Plus, we'll go back out to the phone lines. I see you, Rob. I see you, Joe, and more. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. The Niners fall to the Chiefs 28-18. Grandy, Kyle, Sterling with you. More OT next on 95.7 The Game. are still undefeated. 6-0 is their record. They were off the bye. The 49ers off the mini bye, with Minnesota losing today to Detroit in Minneapolis. That means the Chiefs are what? They're the lone remaining undefeated in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
6-0, and they're already the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, and they are the last perfect team in the NFL at 6-0. And that highlight you just heard, courtesy of the NFL on Fox, the Niners stopped. They had a positive play on special teams. How about that? The Chiefs going for a fake punt early in the game. The Niners stuff it. They get the ball back. They turn it into points with the Anders Carlson 55-yard field goal. 3-0 at that point. They picked off Patrick Mahomes a couple of times. There were good moments here and there, but there were more, of course, bad moments than there were good. The final score, Niners, again, 28-18. They're losers. How about this stat, guys? And then we'll go back out to the phone lines in a second. The 49ers, with Brock Purdy as their starting quarterback, when Purdy does not turn the ball over, the Niners are 14-0. When Brock Purdy turns the ball over at least once, the 49ers are now 6-8 with this loss today.
Gross.
Sometimes football's a simple game, right? Take care of the ball, you don't lose.
I joke about that with like 3 keys to the game all the time, where one of the keys inevitably is win the turnover battle. But that's just it for the Niners.
Pretty simple.
It's like, I know that's the case for a lot of teams, but with the 49ers specifically, it's win the turnover battle, win the game. If they are beating themselves, Debo said this a couple weeks ago, like when they're beating themselves, it's the other way around. They're really hard to beat when they're not beating themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. And you just saw it today. Like, man, they're doing everything right. Man, they're getting pressure on Mahomes. Oh, they sacked Mahomes a couple of times. I think he'd been sacked, 6 times in 4 games against the Niners coming into today, and I think they got him twice today.
I think Kansas City had given up 42 pressures through 5 games so far this year.
Jeez.
So phenomenal.
That's
Phenomenal. You're never getting Mahomes down.
Yeah,
they got him down twice in the first quarter.
Yeah, man. And they're just doing everything right. And then just Brock interception. Or I guess the one in the red zone, the one in the end zone was really bad. The one to Ronnie Bell is forgivable. I think that was just a miscommunication.
Yeah.
But the first one after the fourth down stop, you can't have that. That just that window was never there.
Don't know what he's seeing there.
Forcing a throw in, and same thing in the end zone. You need points. It's 21-12.
That one was maybe impacted a little bit by the George Karlaftis spin move against McKivitz.
Maybe.
My goodness.
He contacted Purdy's arm before he released the ball. But to your point, he was looking for Conley in the end zone, and there were 2 guys sandwiched around Conley. Like, even if that throw gets off unimpeded, at the very best, it's an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
It still might be intercepted anyway.
Yeah. It wasn't.
It was bad.
Here's the other thing, as we kind of zoom out a little bit here. Sterling, I think you brought this up earlier, but the way the 49ers build their team, and they say we want the guys who are going to score touchdowns instead. I think that's such a key point with the Niners-Chiefs matchup, because the Chiefs have like the highest paid offensive interior in the sport, with Creed Humphrey at center and Joe Tooney's their one of their guards, and I forget their other guard's name.
Trey Smith,
thank you. So they have like 3 of the best interior offensive linemen in the sport, and they invest in that spot, and they continue having all the success. And the 49ers, meanwhile, are like, yeah, hey, we're going to draft guys. We're going to have them here on their 4-year rookie contracts, and then we're going to let them go. Oh, look, Jake Brendel, he can play a little. We're going to get him on the cheap at center, and now we're building this. I think at some point, like, that's the philosophical shift I would like to see the 49ers make, because they just don't have the horses to keep up with a team like Kansas City that invests so much money into their offensive and defensive lines. The Niners have invested on the defensive line for sure, but specifically on offense, like, part of the reason Mahomes is able to make all these plays is because he doesn't get pressured a ton. And when he does, it's one move to escape, and now he's out. Whereas the 49ers, every game there's, Jake Brendel got smoked on that play. Oh, Aaron Banks got smoked on that play. Oh, Colton McKivitz got smoked on that play.
First drive of the game, Jake Brendel holding took away a large Jordan Mason run.
Yep.
He pointed out immediately, Jake Brendel, bad performance again.
Yeah, man. And this just feels like a trend at this point, where a lot of the 49ers issues, I think, offensively can come back to the fact that, hey, they just can't block often enough or consistently enough. It might just be that easy.
And that's the thing, is that the easiest way, the fastest way to the quarterback is beating the center.
Yep.
And San Francisco continually watches their center get beat every single game or call for a holding penalty because he's getting beat. And you're just like, how many times in that first half did we see San Francisco 1st and 15, 1st and 20, 2nd and 20, 3rd and 12? And it's like Kyle said earlier, Debo said that we're pretty hard to beat if we're not beating ourselves. But how many times this year has San Francisco in almost every game not been beating themselves? They were beating themselves against the Vikings. They were turning the ball over. The offensive line wasn't good. Special teams was bad. The Rams was a complete, utter collapse of defense and special teams. They beat themselves in that game. The Cardinals, for the most part, was them beating themselves, where when I look at who San Francisco's beat, the Jets are kind of back and forth. Who are they? You beat the Patriots. I get Seattle's there, but Seattle really, to me, still is not really it's not a competitive team. It's like, yeah, they're going to be a first round out. That makes sense. San Francisco has not really beaten a good team this year, and they've lost to really bad teams. And the good teams they faced, Vikings and Kansas and the Chiefs, they got beat pretty handily by both of them. And it's like, for the Niners, yes, you have to stop beating yourselves for sure. The easiest way to win football games is score points and take care of the football. Football, while being very complex, is super simple when you talk about the outcome. Well, that team threw 3 interceptions. That team didn't. In this game, the worst part about it is both teams threw at least 2 interceptions, and San Francisco still couldn't put up points. So, yeah, San Francisco has to stop beating themselves and getting out of their own way, but this team is just not good. Consistently not good. Where the defense picks them up, the offense has no answer. When the offense answers, the defense lets the Chiefs drive 70 yards on 5 plays. And you're like, oh my goodness. Like, no matter what happens, they're going to lose this game. And it's just not good football.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been consistently. You're right. I mean, how many times have the Niners beat themselves? At the very least, in all 4 of their losses, they have aided their opponents in beating them, no doubt. 888-957-9570. Up next is Joe in Pacifica. What's up, Joe? You're on Overtime with Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, guys. I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call. I realize it's only 7 games into the season, so the Niners still have a way of bouncing back. But if they don't, and with all these injuries are starting to pile up, I don't know if it's too early to consider maybe the team possibly looking at next season and maybe offloading some of these veteran contracts to kind of start the rebuilding process sooner than later. I hate to say this because I know it's kind of premature in my thinking, but the one thing I'm kind of worried about with the Niners is they hold on to these players for too long, as opposed to getting rid of them a little bit sooner and start. You're going up against teams like you look at the Lions, the Packers, and other teams in the NFC West or NFC that are getting younger and have a lot of talent, and the Niners are literally trying to find themselves. Like you guys have been talking about this the whole show, trying to identify who they are. And on top of that, they're getting injured and they're getting older. They're not getting any younger. And I'm starting to wonder, maybe this team should start really thinking about, if they don't make it to the playoffs, especially the end of the season, maybe start thinking about rebuilding and starting a clean slate. Those are my thoughts. I'm just kind of concerned about this team and where they're heading in this direction. This may not get any better anytime soon. And I'm just worried about where this team might be going, into next season. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks. I don't think I agree necessarily. The 49ers were in the Super Bowl 8 months ago. I don't think they made any moves this offseason or did anything this offseason that was egregious from a keep a player for too long. Like they re-signed Christian McCaffrey, or they basically guaranteed money that Christian McCaffrey already had coming. They keep Trent Williams, who's still playing at a really high level.
You let Armstead walk.
They re-signed Brandon Aiyuk, or they signed Brandon Aiyuk long term. Kyle Juszczyk took a pay cut. I don't agree with that thought process in terms of the 49ers keep their players for too long. Like the Lions are young and up and coming because they stunk a couple of years ago. Like they're in the 2019 49ers version of this process.
Because they have great players that are on rookie contracts.
Right.
Other than Penei Sewell, who's making a ton of money at right tackle. But.
Right. They just started giving out all these extensions that
Amon-Ra this offseason too.
I don't know exactly how those are built out, but I'm guessing they all didn't kick in this year, right? So that's just where they are. That's where the Texans are. That's where all these young teams, the Packers for sure, even more so. Like that's kind of just where they are. The 49ers are in an advantageous spot. Like you want to be in a place where you're like, dude, we're paying so many dudes. Like so that's why I think, to the caller's point though, I think this season and this offseason is not necessarily about rebuilding, because rebuilding to me is like Debo gone, McCaffrey gone, Trent Williams, get him out of here. Like that to me, I think it's more of a retooling where maybe you do kind of assess, I don't know, what does the offense look like with Kyle Juszczyk versus without? What does it look like with Deebo Samuel versus without? And maybe start looking at it that way. But no, I don't agree with the critique that the 49ers keep their guys for too long. They just played it. They're just losing the Super Bowl it's really hard to bounce back and play really well the next year. And they're in 3 consecutive deep playoff runs in 4 out of 5 years with a lot of these same guys. They're off to a bad start to the year. I don't think it's a like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think it's like a knock on the 49ers team building.
Can we just admit that maybe they're old and they're tired? It's been a long, grueling journey the past few years for San Francisco. And while Fred Warner's playing at a great level and you have so many guys playing good football, just not cohesively, that's kind of the NFL sometimes. Guys have off years, guys get hurt, and things don't happen. Yes, the expectations are there, certainly. Well, the Patriots had expectations every year of going to the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl, which primarily they did, but there was a large gap where they didn't win one. Brady got hurt for a year. They had the greatest team arguably of all time and didn't win a Super Bowl. Now, that said, in San Francisco's case, seasons like this are the exact reason why you have to get it done when you get there. Last year, nobody got hurt. Everyone's healthy. And San Francisco couldn't capitalize. You had Hargrave and Bosa and Warner, and Greenlaw got hurt during the game, but you had Debo and Kittle and Aiyuk, and I get some of those guys were in and out. If you watch receiver, you know even more in-depthly about that stuff. But you had CMC. Like, last year was the perfect. It was like the NFL God said, here's a nearly completely healthy season. We'll let you escape almost losing 2 horrible playoff games against the Packers and Lions, and will give you an appearance in the Super Bowl. And San Francisco literally fumbled that away. You can't do that. That's what makes winning in the NFL so hard, because despite your expectations, despite how good you were last year, the next year is never promised. And I think for San Francisco, well, I do think that this game, to me, when I walked into it, I said, okay, if you're 3-4, you have Dallas, like the next 2 games are definitely indications as to where you are as a team. If you're 3-5 or you're 4-4, that to me does tell John Lynch, should I buy? Should I buy a superstar? Should I buy a small ancillary piece like Calais Campbell to help the defensive line? I don't know. The defensive line to me played pretty good today. That wasn't a problem. It was the offense. But a game like this, like, I'm not saying hard sell, but Charvarius Ward's on the last year of his contract. You can save roughly $9 million. I would want to do that. I want to see this team go for it all. The moves they made in the offseason, getting Malik Collins, letting Armstead go, signing Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, redoing Debo's deal, bringing Aiyuk back. Like, all those moves indicate they're all in. Now Aiyuk's gone for the year, which seems to be the case if the ACL is indeed torn. Hargrave is probably done for the year. You got to work with what you got. We want to see what this team is made of. We want to see what Kyle Shanahan, the genius he may be, is made of. And Brock Purdy, are you worth that $65 million? Win with this team. Win with Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing and Cole McKivitz at right tackle. Win with this team. Win a game like this when your back's against the wall and you have no weapons. That's hard, I get it, but you have to now. Debo may be sick next week. Juwan may be out next week. And it's Conley and Pearsall and Bella and maybe Debo. Win with this roster you get that paycheck for sure. And when you win with this roster, you'll earn the respect of everybody in the NFL for sure.
Yeah, and no matter what happens this season, this will be an off season, the coming off season, full of tough decisions, because at some point you're just going to have to decide what players you want to keep and what players you don't want to keep. Like, no matter what, even if you go and win the Super Bowl, like, it's going to be an off season full of really, really tough decisions. And part of the reason why, and the injury notwithstanding, you talked about Aiyuk, and it's a potential ACL tear. Kyle Shanahan say the Niners fear that. We don't have, the MRI has not happened yet. It'll likely happen tomorrow, and we'll keep you updated, of course, here on 95.7 The Game throughout the day whenever we get that update. But the injury notwithstanding, I mean, the $30 million per year investment in Aiyuk, the return on investment has been terrible so far, and that is going to be a main reason, one of the main reasons why the coming offseason is going to be full of really, really tough decisions. So maybe it's less about, as you talked about, Kyle, a rebuild, which to me, and I think you agree, constitutes a teardown and then resetting, resetting your clock. That's not what this is, but is all of Aiyuk, Debo, Kittle, Juszczyk, all of those guys going to be back next year? Probably not. Just the simple finances. That's a math equation, and the simple math equation suggests that seems unlikely. That's a conversation we can have as the season goes on. As the more losses stack up, the more likely those things are to happen. But at this point, it does not look good, no doubt. 888-957-9570. Let's keep going on the phone lines. Up next is The Observer, who's in Orlando. What's up, The Observer? You're on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. What do you think about this loss today for the Niners, Observer?
Yeah, I really think it was pretty pathetic, gentlemen. Listen, thank you for the line. What I wanted to say is I think that from afar, I think that the 49ers and the Cowboys have the same problem. I think that they both have grossly overvalued their personnel. And I'm the same gentleman that called and said that the 49ers, just from afar, once again, they look kind of old, slow, and unathletic. And I was wondering when they were going to try to improve the team through the draft. I understand that Mr. Shanahan is very good in the later rounds, maybe 5, 6, and 7. But what about 1, 2, 3, and 4? I mean, what have you gotten? What kind of speed, what kind of athleticism have you guys gotten to take you to the next level? I think you have another problem. You have a quarterback that has problem throwing the ball with any velocity. And then you have a receiver in Deebo Samuel, unfortunately. But the truth is that Deebo is more running back than he is wide receiver. He's got no shake. I've never seen such round, circular routes in my life. There's no shake to anybody on the 49er team except for Brandon Aiyuk. George Kittle, I like him. He's a great blocker, a great player, has been a great player. But I think that he lacks a little shake, and he seems to be getting a little bit slower in old age. So I just wanted to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, The Observer, I think you bring up a couple of good points. First of all, the Niners are one of the older teams in the NFL. If you look at their entire roster, top 10 in terms of oldest average age of their players, they get even older on average if you focus on generally the starters, the players that play the most, and you go down almost all of the Niners' key players, like the Kittles and the Debo. Not that Debo is necessarily old, but he's veteran and has been around for a while. The Trent Williamses and all those kind of players, they get a little bit older than most still. It's something that Brian Baldinger has said on this station a number of times this season. What do the Niners look like? What is their identity so far? It's that they look slow. I think The Observer is spot on. They look slow. They're relatively unathletic. We saw them swarm defensively in Seattle, specifically in that first half. That was really encouraging. But through 7 weeks, we haven't really seen that same kind of intensity from the defense for the majority of the season. Yeah, I mean, I'm with the caller. They do look pretty slow through 7 weeks.
This is another issue I have with Kyle Shanahan. Is look at Andy Reid. The Chiefs had carries today for Kareem Hunt, Patrick Mahomes, Mecole Hardman, Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, Xavier Worthy, and something Hicks. Jay Hicks.
Jordan Hicks, the Giants pitcher?
Yeah, maybe that's what he's up to. But somebody named Hicks. They all got carries today because it is about, Xavier Worthy, is he fully integrated into the Chiefs offense yet? He's not. He's not the next Tyreek Hill, at least not as of right now. So what do? Here's an end around. Here's a sweep. Here's a short throw. We're just going to get the ball in the hands of this guy who is he ready to fully grasp the offense? No. but he's going to go get yards. He's going to be effective. Defenses are going to have to respect it, and they're going to have to think about it. The 49ers version of that is Jacob Cowing, and he's on the bench.
Yeah.
He only got in the game today because of injuries. Where Andy Reid is hey, Mecole Hardman, you're not a great receiver, but here's these 4 things you're good at. We're going to make sure you're doing those 4 things.
And he hurt him.
Yes.
He took an end around 20 yards for a touchdown.
Yes. And put the game away. So you have those, like, juxtaposing those 2 things. I think it's always so stark when Andy Reid coaches against Kyle Shanahan, because Andy Reid is like, hey, we need to get in the end zone here. We're going to put Carson Wentz and Patrick Mahomes in 3-point stances in the backfield with, I think was it Carson Steele was back there too? I forget, maybe Kareem Hunt, whoever was there. And we're going to run a play out of this insane formation just to give the defense something to think about. And then we're going to run all these jet sweeps and end arounds, and we're going to do all this crazy stuff and then you have Kyle Shanahan who's going, well, we're going to stick to the outside zone play action game. And as long as we execute, like, that's great, except you don't have dudes that are beating their dudes. At some point, you need somebody to be individually great and just individually athletic. So I agree with the Observer to that point. And I get Jacob Cowing involved. Get Ricky Pearsall if he's got shake to borrow the phrase. Get him involved because they need it. They need it on both sides of the ball. To be honest, I think it's a bigger problem on defense.
But then you watch against the Seahawks last week, Mustafa, electric. I thought he was a massive bright spot today.
Yeah.
Really was he perfect? Maybe not, but I thought he was laying dudes out left and right. He was making big plays. He plays with that electricity you want defensively. For maybe as angry as you are at D. Winters for missing a tackle, it was kind of there was some life to that linebacking room today that wasn't there in previous weeks because of D. Winters, which he's young. He'll make mistakes. He'll live with that, but there is some athleticism at the position that hasn't been there all year long.
Yep.
Bernardo Green, I didn't hear his name much today, but against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago, big interception, locked down DK Metcalf and that receiver core out there with the Seahawks. Like, there has been some youth defensively, and I think the defense has responded. The offense has not. The defense was not great to begin the year. They have definitely picked things up, and I think against the Chiefs and against the Cardinals and against the Seahawks have played their best 3-game stretch so far during the year. All 3 of those games were winnable because the defense played well and got takeaways and got turnovers, whereas the offense, I wouldn't say San Francisco's offense is old. Brock Purdy's a young quarterback in year number 4. I get CMC's out. Mason's relatively, low tread on the tires he currently has, although he's injured today. And then you have guys that are hurt, but Andy Reid, and to Kyle's point, what he does so well is goes, you know what? You may not be a great receiver, but I know your skill set. We can utilize that. Your speed, we can take that and change the offense, make 1 or 2 plays that can focus on that and let you do damage the way I know your skill set allows you to. And that's why you see Xavier Worthy, Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman's not a great receiver.
No.
He'll be a receiver number 4 on most teams. On Kansas City, he's a dynamic weapon they can use to get clutch, big-time touchdowns. Like, it happened multiple times today. And not to sound like, oh, maybe there is good things coming, but injuries to Aiyuk, although terrible, and Debo being sick and Jennings being out. Hope those guys can get back soon, but it may force Kyle Shanahan to rely on these young guys like Pearsall, like Cowman, to go, you know what? If we're going to win this year, we're going to have to utilize your skill sets to win games. And I'm just hoping and praying that, let's say, Debo misses more time with an illness or whatever it is, and Jennings is out further. If this team starts Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell, I'm going to lose my mind because I wouldn't put it past Kyle Shanahan. That's something he would do because they block well and they're vets. Start the young guys, man. Let the young guys cook. They're going to make mistakes, but you're going to have them up to speed if you want to win in the NFL. Be electric. That's what Shanahan's offense needs right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jacob Cowing, 2 catches, 3 targets, 50 yards. He had the big 41-yarder that would have went for a touchdown if Aiyuk led him perfectly. Not the easiest, or if Purdy led him perfectly. Not the easiest throw, but one that Purdy has made in the past. It was a nice double move by Cowing, ran right past the DB. To be fair, that was the backup corner for Kansas City that came in as an injury replacement. So that's not a legit NFL number one corner that he ran past, but he shows a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of speed that maybe the Niners don't have at that position. And if you're asking me, who would you want to see if Aiyuk is out for an extended period of time, maybe for the whole year, which seems likely considering Kyle Shanahan has said they fear that Aiyuk has a torn ACL in his right knee. If it's going to be Ronnie Bell or Jacob Cowing, I know who I want to see. If it's going to be Chris Conley or Jacob Cowing, I know who I want to see. We're probably going to see a lot more of Ricky Pearsall now. Of course, this was his first game available and active. He had 3 catches, over 5 targets for 21 yards. He will play a lot more now without Aiyuk, I would assume. Jacob Cowing, I hope, will play more as well, and I'm with both you guys and with our caller as well. It's going to be up to some of these others to step up, and I hope Kyle Shanahan has the wherewithal to allow them those opportunities, because it's pretty clear the other guys that he would be turning to, simply because they are maybe a little bit better at some of the other things, they're not good enough, and they're not going to cut it in the most important aspects of what a wide receiver does, which is get open and catch the football. So put out there the guys that can get open and catch the football. I would be okay not seeing Ronnie Bell run around for the rest of the season. Just give me Jacob Cowing, because at the very least it's unknown, and I want to find out. Give me all the information as soon as you possibly can. That's how I feel. We can talk more about that when we come back. We also will continue on the phone lines. Rodney, you're up first when we return as overtime continues. It's Kyle, Sterling, Grandy with you. Overtime on 95.7 The Game after the Niners fall to the Chiefs for a 5th straight time. 28-18 is the final score. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
continues now.
Final score, Chiefs 28, 49ers 18. Welcome back to OT. Grandy, Madsen, Bennett with you here on 95.7 The Game. We have been mostly pessimistic, I would say. I don't know how you can't be after this loss. The Niners now 3-4. How about I try to cheer you up a little bit? You guys want a little ray of sunshine?
Because I've got nothing, bro.
Okay.
I'm mad.
So 49ers lose to the Chiefs week 7 to fall to 3-4, right?
Not a good start by you.
I'm not more sad.
Not feeling any better.
The last time that happened, the 49ers lost to the Chiefs week 7 to fall in 3-4. They went all the way to the NFC Championship game. It was just 2 years ago. Same week.
Yeah.
Same results.
Yeah.
Same record.
Yeah.
3-4. And then what did they do? They won the final 10 games of that regular season, and they might have went to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for their quarterback tearing his UCL in the first quarter of the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, that was the game. Travarius Ward was a little banged up. Nick Bosa had missed the previous week against Atlanta, and he said after the game, basically, we were not prepared.
That was Christian McCaffrey's first game as a Niner.
And which is the other kind of key difference here, is the Niners had Christian McCaffrey in all the games the rest of the way, and maybe he comes back this week. I'm circling after the bye week sometime is what I'm guessing. But
seems likelier, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why
3-4 after a loss to the Chiefs just 2 years ago, and they did not lose
telling
again.
Me there's a chance.
Yeah, and remember they won a bunch of those games with Jimmy Garoppolo too, and I think today notwithstanding, Brock Purdy is a pretty significantly better player than Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense. So that's why, there's definitely, if you want to fall back on that and you want to fall back on, well, they've done this before, you've been there before, cool. But there's nothing that happened today or anything that's really happened through the first 7 weeks of this season that makes you think, hey, this is a good team. This is a Super Bowl contender. And the Super Bowl aspect of this can't be overlooked. The Super Bowl hangover part of this cannot be overlooked in comparison to 2021 or 2022. In 21, they started 3-5. And in 22, they were 3-4. Mm-hmm. So maybe those things help, but I don't get the same. I appreciate and respect it, but
I mean, let's go back, and Sterling, you can jump in here. Let's go back to how we felt after the loss to the Chiefs, 2022, 3-4. That featured losses with Trey Lance to Chicago. It featured maybe the ugliest Niner game in my lifetime in Denver week 3, where Jimmy Garoppolo runs out of the back of the end zone. It featured the tough loss to, I love the guy, Marcus Mariota and the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta.
Dude, go Ducks, man.
By the way, Marcus with a hell of a performance filling in for Jaden Daniels today. Shout out. And then that loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, where it wasn't a 10-point loss. You lost 44-23. It was so bad that some guy named Brock Purdy came in and made his NFL debut that day because he was filling in, not because anyone got hurt, but because the game was over in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was bad and it was ugly. And then you had kind of a do or die, gotta win it game in LA the next week before you go into a bye. And we know what happened. McCaffrey had the throwing touchdown, the passing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and rushing touchdown. You go into the bye, you feel good, then you just roll off 9 more wins in a row after that. But that also featured another injury to your quarterback, and then Brock Purdy came in. You never missed a beat. In fact, you got better. We didn't feel good 3-4 2022 either, is my only point.
Are you telling me it's Tanner Mordecai time? Is that what I'm hearing?
Gosh.
No, I don't even think he's on the roster, right? Is he even on the roster?
Practice squad, baby.
Practice squad guy still? All right, good for him. No, the difference, I keep going back to this because I want so badly to believe that there's something to that. And Kyle Shanahan teams have historically been really good in November and December. And no doubt. Those are all facts. But I keep going back to in 21 and 22, they had a defense that they could rely on. And even in 23 to a little bit lesser extent. But this year, I don't think that unit is quite the same, where you feel really good about, hey, gotta have it game. They're going to go give up 13 points. And you feel good about a Kyle Shanahan offense scoring more than 13. And I just don't have the confidence in the defense this year to do that. And certainly the offense, if they're going to be in the kind of shape they were in today, if they're going to be in that kind of shape next week. which is really, really tough to see them stringing 10 wins together.
Am I wrong to say that if Christian McCaffrey comes back and everything is all fine and the offense gets back to what it was last year, like that's going to make me more upset because it means that he's the answer. He's the one that fixes everything, and Kyle Shanahan's offense isn't as good. Like his offense isn't just taking a step back. It's like it can't even move the football. Like the offense cannot score points. They had 18 points in this game. They had 12 through 3 quarters. The offense has been a massive problem all year long, red zone, whatever. Like, if Christian McCaffrey comes back, and let's say, like in 2022, they go on this massive run, which, great, they're winning football games. We're back, baby. But, like, in reality, that to me is like a big knock on Kyle Shanahan of if he ever misses time again, your offense doesn't go back to relatively competitive. You know, okay, you're middle of the pack. This offense, it really isn't, outside of beating the Patriots by a lot and, you know, putting up a lot against the Seahawks. This offense has been 20 points a game, 23 points a game, which isn't terrible, but it's not. It's a bad team, Sue.
I think there's two separate issues here, though, because their offense as a whole, I think it's mostly been fine. The explosive plays are still there. It looks different. They're throwing the ball down the field a ton.
No yak, which is odd.
Right there. Well, that's partly because they're pushing the ball downfield so much. But on the other hand, to Sterling's point, that red zone stuff is weird. Like that's the biggest issue, is being below 40% in the red zone or wherever they are now, 41, 42%. I don't know.
They were 25th coming into this game.
Yeah, that's kind of the part of this, because even today, 5.5 yards per play. The Chiefs were 4.8. They've been there all year. I think they're still top 5 in yards per play for the season. Like they're right there.
Well, no, what else is weird? The Chiefs, one of the few teams worse than the Niners in the red zone this year. The Chiefs go 4 for 5. 5 red zone possessions, 4 touchdowns.
Which goes back to my whole issue with the Niners defense. But so I kind of agree with what you're saying, Sterling, where if McCaffrey comes back and all of a sudden they're racking up touchdowns again, it's like, oh, the Shanahan offense it's not entirely based on McCaffrey because they're still moving the ball without him. They just can't punch it in without him.
Yeah.
Which is still a pretty significant problem.
It is important. And
touchdowns.
I think, to your point, Kyle, right? My attempt at trying to bring some positivity overall failed. And I think a couple of the reasons why, one of them is what you pointed out. Maybe you don't trust this defense as much as you did 2022. How about, let me just read off to you during the win streak for the Niners in 2022, points allowed.
Yeah.
Points allowed for the Niners defense in those wins. 14, 16, 10, 0, 17, 7, 13, 20. And they had an overtime where they gave up 34, that weird one in Vegas, 13 against Arizona. But you're talking about 17 or fewer in 8 consecutive games.
Come on. Is this defense doing that?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
Probably not. And then the other half of it, which we haven't talked about yet, is that year, 2022, that featured a bad Chargers team, a bad Arizona team twice, a bad New Orleans team, Tampa team. That was Baker, but it wasn't a very good. Oh, no, that was actually...
That was Brock Purdy's first start. That was Tom Brady.
You're right. It was Tom Brady still. Yeah. It featured a bad Commanders team. It featured the Raiders. Meanwhile, this year you have the Packers, you have the Bills, you have the Lions, you have all of these really good teams.
The entire NFC North.
You have really good teams coming up. So that's going to make it harder as well.
Andy Dalton spun it a little bit in that Saints game, though. I was impressed. I was impressed by Andy Dalton in that game.
Andy Dalton. Saints.
That was the Jimmy Garoppolo throw it up for Jawan Jennings in the back of the end zone game.
Yeah.
It was like, how'd they score 7 in this one?
Yeah, it got
he spun it. It was 13-0 Niners, Kyle.
Yeah, but there was a drop by Chris Olave in there, bro. Andy Dalton wasn't
fumbled
bad
in the red zone because Ufunga popped it out.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You guys remember what happened in that game? I don't remember that
job,
game.
Mark. Come on, tighten it up, man.
Locked in.
I have wiped that game from my memory. 13-0.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It was gross.
What an ugly football game.
That Saints defense is really good, and Andy Dalton made some money throws. I think Chris Olave had at least one and maybe 2 drops. And was there a PI that didn't get called in there too? I don't know.
Whatever. I'd rather have that game than this one, no doubt.
But those Niners teams that started off 3-5 and 4-4 with multiple quarterback issues, and just were really just not great to begin the year, they beat this team by 20 points. Like, those teams are way more consistent than this team ever was.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, this team, like, the way they're playing is so rocky, where whether it's offense or defense, and while I trust this defense more than the offense this year, I did, like, every single drive, you're kind of holding your breath, like, what's going to happen now? 3 and out, a punt, a pick, a touchdown, maybe, like, get in the red zone and it's a field goal. Like, every game feels like you're just grinding drive by drive to hopefully win, and you're almost begging San Francisco to find the end zone in some way. And I don't know if it's too predictable, it's just Christian McCaffrey, but it just feels like that if San Francisco was going to win a playoff game, go to the playoffs, fingers crossed, they find a way to go back to the Super Bowl, this is like they're going to have to earn every single inch of grass.
Yeah.
Every win is going to be a fight to the death for every single yard if they're going to win and go on a run this year. They're going to make things harder for themselves. They already have. They could be 3-5 by the end of next week, and we're all sitting here like, what do we do? Like, do you sell? Is the season like, hey, be a spoiler? This team is too good on paper to just be that. So they had to come out next week. Like, they had 10 days off and put on this performance. That's not what a Shanahan team ever does. Like, the 10 days off and you do this off your most impressive win? Like, I just don't know if, like, the get-right games exist for this team this year.
I think what you just said, though, about this team being that good on paper is why this is also frustrating.
Yeah.
Because, they should be. And that's why I would love to get on the radio and say, season's over. Like, this team is bad. They're cooked. Let's move on to something else. Let's look ahead to the draft. The tank starts now. That would be so much easier than, maybe they figure it out, because, like, they can. If you came from the future, if you Sterling Bennett or Mark Grandy came from the future and said, hey, I am from January of 2025, the 49ers won the NFC West. They went 11-6. They won the division, and they hosted a playoff game, and they're in the NFC Championship game again. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, I could see that. But also, same token, you could be like, they went 7-10. They're eliminated from the playoffs in week 13. Like, oh, okay, well, yeah. It's kind of, and that's why this is so frustrating, because you can see it. You can last year, the very similar version of this team was really good and the best team in the league, I thought. And so many of those, like, key pieces are still there. It's just like the starter just isn't turning over.
Yeah, you're now a game out of the NFC West, and I'll ask both of you guys this. Knowing everything you know about the 49ers and about the division, the Niners are 3-4, the Seahawks are 4-3. Who are you betting? If you had to put money on it, who are you betting to win the NFC West? For me, it's still no contest the 49ers, and that's because of exactly what you're talking about. I don't feel great about it, but, like, it's almost by default.
What do my odds look like?
Well, the Niners are still the favorite. They're still the favorite. They're still one of the favorites to win the NFC. Not the NFC West, but the NFC, period.
Well, hold on. The Seahawks play the Bills at home, the Rams, Niners again, Cardinals, Jets, Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, and Bears.
Not an easy schedule either.
No. But more winnable than San Francisco's is.
Did you guys see the point spread for next week yet?
No.
Okay, don't look it up. What do you think the spread is for next week, guys, both of you?
49ers by 5 points.
Sterling?
3.5.
Yeah, the Niners are favored by 6. And it's like Vegas.
How?
The Cowboys suck.
Because, dude, like, no,
the Niners suck right now.
But we all feel like these losses so much heavier than they are.
Niners were also favored today.
Right. By what, a point and a half?
Yeah.
We feel these losses so much heavier. And right now it's like urgency and panic and, oh my God, this is a disaster. But then you have Vegas, who is looking at this very pragmatically because there's a lot of money on the line.
Chill, take a deep breath.
And
it's
they're
week
favored
7.
by a touchdown over a team coming off its bye. So all of that said, I think I would still bet the 49ers for those reasons, man. Like, they are Christian McCaffrey getting back and maybe a trade or two away on defense from being a juggernaut again. So I'm at 3-4. It feels bad. Today was especially ugly, no doubt. But I'm not ready to punt on the 49ers as a favorite in the NFC West. The NFC is crazy. I think Minnesota's better. I think Detroit's better.
Detroit and the Packers scare me the most by far, more than anyone.
The Packers are very good. It's just anyone in the NFC North, just kind of in general.
Turn things up.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay might be really good. That's all. That's TBD for me still. But yeah, so I wouldn't go as far as to bet them to win the NFC. But I think in the NFC West, I think you still gotta take them.
Yeah, no doubt. 888-957-9570. Up next is Rodney in Tennessee. What's up, Rodney? You're on overtime on 95.7 The Game. How you doing? Rodney, you there? Nope. Man, what's going on out there, folks?
I need somebody to explain Tommy Edmond to me. That's what I need.
It's a crossover. We're talking NLCS right now.
Yeah, I need. Can he play some linebacker? Because apparently he's just the greatest athlete in
Tommy
in
Edmond, 2-run homer. Dodgers lead 4-1 over the Mets in the third inning. As long as we're doing cross-sport updates,
yeah, please.
We also do have an update from the NBA. Moses Moody and the Warriors are close to an agreement on a 3-year, $39 million contract extension. How about that? We'll talk about that tomorrow on 95.7 The Game. But we had to go back out to the phones.
How'd Niners Chiefs go? Well, Moses Moody and Tommy Edmond came up in postgame.
So not great.
Was wondering.
Not great. It was 28-18 in favor of the Chiefs, but we got a couple of other updates in, which is always good to do. All right, 888-957-9570. Let's try David, who was at the game.
Come on, David.
What's up, David? How you doing?
How you doing, fellas?
Come on, let's go,
terrible.
David. Nice job.
Yeah, not great, honestly.
Let's go.
Hyped her on the phone.
Gosh, man. Oh my gosh, it was a different game, and I'm gonna tell you like this. First of all, DJ, I took my little son. He's 10 years old. We were at the game. We had Chiefs fans on both sides, and so the Niners are in more trouble than you know. We'll explain that after. But when they did not go for it on 4th down in the first quarter. That said to me, you don't trust your team. And so we should have gone for it right there, put all that other BS behind us, and just gambled. I had a Niner fan say out loud, Shanahan, you ain't Dan Campbell. Well, we don't need you to be Dan Campbell, but we need to understand today's NFL. Today's NFL, you have to go for it there. You do not punt. Try to gather your momentum. And so it's just different. We're at the game. There are a lot of KC fans. And I'm going to tell you, Niners are in trouble more than the Niners on the field. Niners at York raised prices again. I don't know if you guys are flagship, but they raised prices again, and it's really hard to think you're going to pay for them. I tried to sell these tickets. It didn't work. At the end of the day, I said, DJ, let's go. My son, let's go. Let's go watch the game. We're going to see Mahomes. He's the NFL's version of Curry in the NBA. But guess what? He wasn't special today. He was your average good quarterback today. We just didn't do anything. And we were down 10 or down 11, 12, whatever it is. Maybe we thought it was a reverse fortune, right? We're like, okay, it's our turn. We're going to come back. And it just never happened. And so at the end of the day, though, fellas, our goal, a lot of us coming in knew because of the weird offseason, it was not going to be an NFC championship game. NFC number 1 in the NFC, win the division. And that's still the goal, and I think it's still probable, and we just have to do that. But it's going to be a long year. I believe in the Niners. I appreciate you guys taking my call, but it's been that loss, it is what it is. Some reason we can't beat them, and I can't tell you why.
Yeah, appreciate the call, David.
We've been trying to tell people why for a couple hours now. No,
probably not doing a very good job. I don't know.
It's on the going for it on 4th and 1. Like, it's 4th and 1 on your own 41. I guess I get the idea of to why you would punt there, and it did flip the field.
Yeah, scoreless game.
Yeah, puts Kansas City on the 8. They go 3 and out from there, by the way.
And then you turn that into a field goal.
Right. So it did. I don't hate that, but to the caller's point, this is just a fundamental issue with Kyle Shanahan. I think he plays to not lose a lot, and that's how football was for 100 years. Not 100, 95-ish years. That's what football was. 4th down, you're punting. If you can't kick a field goal, you're punting. Unless the game's on the line, right?
Well, our caller brought up, there was a Chiefs fan or a Niner fan next to him at Levi's saying, well, Shanahan isn't Dan Campbell.
Right.
And Yeah, obviously he's not. Dan Campbell, much like Andy Reid today, tried a fake punt with the Lions in Minneapolis against the undefeated Vikings today. A fake punt, I think on like 4th and 7 in the first quarter from their own territory. It failed spectacularly. Like, just across the board, trying that stuff isn't always a good thing.
Right.
Like, there are times to do it. Maybe that was one to do it, but let's not just say across the board, a 4th and 7 fake punt is a good decision.
Yeah, no, it's not that. But 4th and 1, it's always to me, it's as easy as what would the other team want you to do right now?
Oh yeah, that's how I think too.
And when I see 4th and 1 on their own 41, if that was the Chiefs, I'd have been like, hope they punt.
Please.
Yeah. Really hope they trot the punter out here. And that's what Shanahan just way too often for me. Whether it's this spot or another one, it's just the fact that, hey, they're probably not going to go for it on 4th down. We knew they weren't going to go for 2 on when they scored to make it 14-12. It's like, well, there's no chance they're going for 2 here. And it's that old way of thinking of like, hey, just try not to lose. Just don't lose. Well, if you do that, you might be down 9 instead of 8. And if you punt it here, well, now that it's just like the field position stuff, and it's like, dude, have faith in your dudes to get a yard.
There was a story, and Ron Rivera was on last week with Willard and Dibbs, Riverboat Ron, the Riverboat Gambler, and he got that nickname because John Madden encouraged him like to be a little more aggressive, break the mold, like think creatively. Like, don't just punt because you have always punted up to that point. And he told the story about what turned around those Panthers teams led by Cam Newton and company. They were like, I don't know, 5 and whatever, 5 and 11 or whatever it was. And they turned around and were 13-3 the next year. Their first game of that season where they turned things around, they went for it on 4th down twice on their first drive of the year. And as they're running off the field after scoring a touchdown, Cam Newton comes up to Ron Rivera and says, hey, coach, thanks for believing in us. Like, it's also not just as simple as, like, we can get this 1 yard. Sometimes it's kind of like a waterfall effect or a snowball effect where, you show confidence in your offense, they're better as a result. Then the next time they take the field, they're even better as well. Like, this is a multi-pronged thing at times as well.
Yeah.
Sure, but the Lions and the Chiefs are 10 times more buttoned up than the Niners are currently.
That's a good point.
The Niners don't go for it, or say San Francisco goes for it on 4th down. There's that defense can give up a touchdown in one play, and we'll say, well, that didn't work. Whereas the Lions, it's going to be a grinded out for the opposing offense. For Kansas City, they're stopping the run against everybody. They know that the odds an opposing team scores a touchdown against them, even if they stop a 4th down conversion, is slim to none, or they're holding them to a field goal. Whereas San Francisco, for maybe as inconsistent as the defense has been and for as better as they played recently, they know that, hey, if we give the opponent the football on, I don't know, our 40-yard line, they're going to score. Now, the inverse is we punt it away and we'll give Mecole Hardman 55 free yards anyway. So why does it all matter? Like, that's just the inverse of like, that's where San Francisco's at. So it's like, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, that San Francisco just simply is not playing good football. The defense is playing not great. The offense can't score. Special teams, my goodness, fire Brian Schneider, please. But I digress.
Yeah, that was a bad punt coverage that led to another score for Kansas City. What's up?
I have a 4th down stat that I can't wait to get off. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
We'll do that on the other side. What a tease. What a tease by Kyle Madsen. The most insane 4th down stat. You're not going to want to miss it, so keep it here on 95.7 The Game. It's overtime. We'll get to your calls as well next. Nathan and Indio, you're coming up first. We also do have to hear from Kyle Shanahan and hear what he had to say postgame. That's coming up on the other side as well as overtime continues. Kyle, Sterling, Grandy with you. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
Now back to Overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett, with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
28-18, the final score. The Chiefs over the 49ers at Levi's Stadium today. The Chiefs now 5 consecutive wins over Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. That dates back to the 2018 regular season. Of course, we know about the Super Bowl at the end of the 2019 season. Regular season 2 years ago. Week 7 as well, by the way, in that 2022 regular season. A loss here at Levi's. We know about last February in Vegas. And then, of course, today down in Santa Clara, Week 7 here of the 2024 season. 28-18 this time. It featured maybe a couple of interesting, debatable decisions by Kyle Shanahan. For me, it was not going for the 2-point conversion after scoring a touchdown in the third quarter to make it a 2-point game. You could have tied the game with a 2-point conversion. You kick the extra point. It misses off the left upright. Then you're down by 2, and the Chiefs make it a touchdown. It's a 2-possession game. Niners can never recover beyond that. There was a 4th and 1 early in the game. Kyle, I know that one of our callers was talking about that they were frustrated by. Maybe it was an okay decision because the defense then got a 3 and out, and you ultimately turned the field position difference into 3 points. But overall, I think you guys both agree some of Kyle Shanahan's 4th down decisions over the years have been a point of contention. And I know you have a statistic you want to add to the fuel to the fire for that conversation.
Yeah, and keeping in mind here that part of the reason teams go for it on 4th down is sometimes because they are bad. Usually, like this year in 2024, the leaders in 4th down conversions or 4th down conversion attempts entering this week, the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins, the Carolina Panthers.
So you're down in games and you're in desperation mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also when you start over the course of an entire season, it shakes out a little bit differently. But just to keep this in mind, 2015, I went back. You were talking about Ron Rivera.
Okay.
That was the year they went to the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
The leader in 4th down conversion attempts had 24.
Over the course of a whole season.
Over the course of a whole season.
So not even 2 a game.
Fast forward to 2021. I'm going to do the 3 years prior to this one. Fast forward to 2021. The leader in 4th down conversion attempts, 41. 4th down conversion attempts.
Almost doubled.
Almost doubled.
In 6 years?
6 years. The 49ers had 20. That was 26th in the league.
In 2021.
In 2021. The following year, 42 4th down conversion attempts led the league. The 49ers went backwards, 17. That was 25th. Last year, 48 4th down conversion attempts led the NFL, and that number belonged to the Carolina Panthers. The Detroit Lions had 40. They were 2nd place. Detroit Lions, pretty good team.
Yeah.
The 49ers?
Last year, 4th down attempts.
6.
I was going to say 7.
13.
Oh.
Last in the league.
Combined.
Last in the league. And again, part of that is due
they're ahead a lot.
Them being ahead a lot and just playing. You can play. So I will say that. But
the Lions are the example that bucks the trend.
Correct.
The Lions were a great team last year and still were 2nd in the league.
And there's somebody listening, I'm sure, that goes, yeah, and look what it did to them in the NFC title game.
Sure.
But it's those were drop passes, first of all. Like the plays were there. They just didn't exit. The receivers didn't execute them. But that's
Josh Reynolds.
Oof, tough. That's a tough go for Detroit. But hate to see it. So that's something that, like, the fact that 4th down conversion attempts are going up just in general around the league, and you're seeing the 49ers go down against the grain with that. I think sometimes it manifests in games like this where, man, you need a play. You need something to turn momentum. You need something to go take this game away from Kansas City. And Kansas City does that kind of stuff all the time, and the 49ers never do, because it's like, hey, if we execute and if we do this, and if I set up this play call and set up that play call, then everything's going to be fine. Like, dude, football doesn't always go like that, Kyle. You can't plan out exactly how this game is going to go. You have to throw a curveball every now and then. And I just feel like he very, I'm not going to say never because he does it sometimes. He just very rarely does that.
And when he does it, it surprises me.
Yes. Every time.
The great teams in football, the Lions, the Chiefs, it feels like when they play, when you're playing them, almost every drive is 4th down territory, whether they're on their own 20 or on the opposing team's 20. Where like, when you play San Francisco, despite the weapons they have, and I get this year's different, CMC and Aiyuk and Debo and Kittle have missed some time. It feels like that if you can get them on third down, even if you stop them on 3rd and 1, they're never or rarely ever going to go for it on 4th and 1, even if they're on the opponent's 35-yard line. It's give me the points, take the field goal, and let's get out of there. Mm-hmm. Where if that's the case, and Kyle Shanahan, who has been very successful in San Francisco as a head coach, if he's stuck that far in the past, what is to make us believe that if he's not, I don't want to say adjusting to the times, but you see, Andy Reid has won or might win 3 straight Super Bowls, already has won 3 with Kansas City, working on their three-peat as we speak, and just trounced San Francisco today. Why are we to believe that's ever going to change? If they're going backwards and Shanahan is stuck in the mud, stuck in the past, is that ever going to change?
Boy,
maybe getting smacked in the mouth enough would force something. I don't know.
That's kind of the okay. You were talking silver linings earlier. That's the if I'm trying to scoop a positive out of this pile of bad stuff,
a 3-4 record maybe forces some critical thinking about overall strategy.
Yeah, and maybe that's one thing that I think Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff are always really good at is like during the bye week. I think they do self-scouting really, really well. But I think this kind of loss today might be the kind of thing that forces them to go, okay, we need to change in X, Y, and Z ways. Shanahan said after the game, there's no way to sugarcoat it. We got our ass kicked. Okay, great. That actually might be good. Maybe it's good that Brock Purdy threw interceptions to nobody, to the wrong team today. Like where it wasn't batted up in the air, or was like an amazing play. He's just throwing it into the defender's chest. Maybe this is all good. Maybe this forces a level of self-scouting that they weren't doing to this point, and there's a reset, and okay, it's Jacob Cowing now, and it's Ricky Pearsall, and how do we best utilize these guys? Maybe. But on the other hand, what I think we're going to see from Kyle Shanahan is, okay, let's see, Jacob Cowing is going to go into the Debo Samuel role, and Debo Samuel is going to go into the Brandon Aiyuk role, and Ricky Pearsall is going to do this, and that's how it's going to be. That's what I'm fearing is going to happen.
Yeah.
So we can hope that that's the case, right? That Shanahan makes the adjustment. Getting smacked in the mouth is enough to make him say, okay, a change has to be made before the season is lost. Was 2 Super Bowls that you blew in the second half not that? Was losing to the Lions in the NFC Championship game not that? Was a game against the Vikings and a game against the Rams and a game against the Cardinals this year not that? We talked so much about special teams being an issue. It's been years, and he has not changed a single thing in regards to how that unit is coached.
Yep.
Why should Niner fans believe, after a game like this, anything's going to change outside of personnel? Because it actually has to change, because Aiyuk's probably done for the year. Hargrave is out for the entire year, too. Like, why should anybody believe that's going to happen if it hasn't happened, and he's been here since 2017? Yeah. And we've seen the same thing over and over and over again that has hurt this team in massive moments, Super Bowls, playoff games, and even this year, they're 3-4. And 4 of their losses, special teams has killed them. Turnovers have killed them, which aren't always his fault, but it's like, if we're hoping and asking for a change, I don't really think Shanahan, after a game like this, will make a massive change. I'm pessimistic, and I totally get that, and I want to be positive and whatnot. But when I see a game like this, I go, nope, doubling down against the Cowboys next week. Can't wait to watch that.
I mean, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm not so sure I would bet on a drastic change either. I'm just hopeful that maybe if they get beat down, not that I'm rooting for them to get beat down, but if they get beat down enough, maybe it forces a change. But am I expecting that to happen, even if they do get beat down continually? No. If Kyle Shanahan has proven one thing over his career, he's a pretty stubborn guy, and I don't think he's going to make a momentous change or something like that just because of the result of a few weeks here in the first half of a season. 888-957-9570. Nathan in Indio is up next here on Overtime. What's up, Nathan? You're on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Hey, good. Hey, listen, well, not so good, but I'm trying to look at the reality here and just trying to accept it as it is. But I like to tell you this. The analogy I could use is that the 49ers are that girl that looks good with the makeup on, and then you take the makeup off and you think, oh, well, she's not as good looking as she thought. And the reason I say that is, like we said, a lot of you guys have said, I understand, is that we came to the season thinking they still got most of the same players. They're still a good team. That's the makeup. They look really good. But underneath that all is there are fractures or fissures or deficiencies, whether it's holdouts, coaches not being able to communicate to the players not fully buying in, and you add the injuries, you add a lack of discipline, you start piling up all these deficiencies, and you just realize that this team, even with the talent that they still are, which is still decent, it's still better than most of the league, they're not capable of overcoming all their deficiencies. And so I don't really put it on so much as a Super Bowl hangover, but I just put it on just the fact that it is just so hard to, year after year, get guys into the locker room to start the season and to have them buy into what you're selling. And even if you're off your game a little bit, it's not like Kyle all of a sudden become a bad coach, but it goes to show you that when things aren't right, and there are a lot of things that aren't right, you don't beat teams that you're supposed to beat, like the Rams and the Cardinals, and the teams that have their act together even more than you do are going to expose you. Mm-hmm. And what we saw today was the Chiefs exposed the 49ers and saying, no, you're not as good as we are.
Yep. Yeah, Nathan. And I think you get to a certain point, and I got to be careful here because I have never once advocated for this, and I'm not advocating for it now. I'm not advocating for Kyle Shanahan to no longer be the Niners head coach. But you do get to a point where you look at the Niners roster, you look at their talent, and you look at their record, and you just simply say there are a number of other coaches and a number of other teams who are performing better so far this season with much less talent than the 49ers have, even with the Niners injuries.
Yep. That's it. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Like, you are underperforming by a mile considering the talent that is available to you.
Go watch what the Packers did with Matt LaFleur with Malik Willis at quarterback.
Go watch the Commanders this whole year.
Go watch the Commanders do, anything. Watch Kevin O'Connell get Sam Darnold in there and have Sam Darnold looking like an... They're just figuring out ways to... And the Vikings have Justin Jefferson, which is a big deal, obviously, but the 49ers skill position guys are just better than Green Bay's, better than Minnesota's. Like, there's no...
Better than the Commanders by a mile?
Yes, by like a lot. Like, the Commanders are trying to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. So I'm with you guys, man. Like, I think Kyle Shanahan's a heck of a coach, but I do think at some point it can't just be outside zone and play action and throws over the middle. Like, there's got to be something different. There has to be some kind of significant shakeup. And I'm not saying, they need to go 4 wide and just spread and do all that. It doesn't have to be something crazy, but they have to do something different than what they're doing because I think they're just too predictable right now. And I just... Is anyone scared of the 49ers offense?
No.
Well, they've still been a top 10 scoring offense coming into the day, which is weird.
Sure.
It doesn't feel that way.
It feels like a facade. Like, that stat feels fake if you watch them play.
But it also feels like they could have easily scored a whole lot more points.
Right, which is where I wonder, like,
despite the red zone inefficiencies, despite all of that, they still have, coming into today, a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL. Like a top third in the league offense, putting points on the board.
Yeah.
And like, you change a play or two here or there throughout the course of the season, it could be a top 5 scoring offense.
Yeah.
But like, I don't overall feel different like than you guys. I mean, today is a different story. Today's offense was very tough to watch.
Yeah.
But there's also been moments throughout the season where the offense hasn't been easy to watch, and they're still putting up 28 points on those games.
Here's why I asked this. Because you're right. I think they're just more talented at some point. Like, I think on some level they're just better than other teams from just a man-to-man standpoint. But it looked like the Chiefs today knew exactly what the 49ers wanted to do on every snap. Yep. And George Kittle won his rep a couple of times, and Jacob Cowing won his rep against somebody named, I think it's Najee Johnson is the guy's name. Najee Robinson, something? I don't know. But it's like that's he won his rep against that guy. Jordan Mason, got behind a couple of good blocks and churned out some big runs. Like for sure, that happens. But there's nothing schematic. I was talking to Cam behind the glass. He was like, I can't remember the last time there was just a, wow, Kyle Shanahan, incredible game. And he's right. It feels very stale at this point. And this is coming from one of the most creative offensive coaches in the league. They have way too much talent to not have another pitch than whatever it is they're doing.
Would I be out of line, and we're not in the building, so I don't know exactly what the inner workings are. Knowing how the year began, no CMC, Aiyuk's holding out, Trent doesn't show up till a week prior to the year starting and needs IVs in a couple weeks to begin the year because he isn't in NFL shape just yet. Would I be wrong to say because there was so much disarray, if you will, to begin the year, you couldn't really install much because your stars weren't out there and guys were injured, like Rendell and Pearsall missed a lot of training camp and OTAs, that the offense was kind of a mess. And there also were bigger things that weren't just offensive-centric that were also a mess, signing contracts, injuries, and whatnot, that it took away the focus that people have talked about for years, that let Kyle just be the offensive coordinator, get a head coach. Now, that's crazy. I won't pitch that. I'm not saying fire Kyle, but would I be wrong to say there was so much else happening that took Kyle away from being the offensive coordinator, that's why this slow start's happening? Getting Aiyuk signed, running up into John Lynch's office and saying, don't trade him. He agreed to a deal finally. Having Jalen Moore play left tackle the entirety of training camp. Pearsall, obviously, in game getting shot. There's so much else going on during the offseason program leading up to week one that it kind of took away him prepping the offense this year. And the slow start just feels like he's not in rhythm as a play caller. It is clear there is no creativity. It's just drop backs, 7-step drops with Purdy, outside zone. Even if the other team knows it's coming, just call it anyways. Like, it feels like it's just cramming a square peg into a round hole, hoping it works itself out. And it's just not working at all. Now, to Grandy's point, different plays here or there. Maybe they have 35 points. Maybe they're a top 5 scoring offense. But the reality is they aren't hitting those plays. And a lot of that is due to Kyle Shanahan. Boring play calling, non-creative play calling, red zone issues, bad offensive line play at times. You can't run the football inside the 20 at all this year. Like, all of that comes down to you're asking for the one guy paid and hired to lead your organization as a head coach and the OC, and he's kind of failing at his job right now. Like, Shanahan so far would have a failing grade for me in 2024. They're under 500. They're not putting up the points they should. They're below the expectations. Despite the injuries, like you guys said, Jaden Daniels out there cooking dudes. I mean, why are worse teams playing better than San Francisco with far less weapons, a worse quarterback, worse offensive lines, no running backs at all? There's no excuses.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's got to come back on the head coach. And for that reason, I would circle week 10 out of the bye. And if this feels the same, we got a major problem. It's a major problem right now. But if after the bye, no matter what happens, Dallas, win or loss, after the bye, if this feels the same, we have a major problem. But there's also a real chance that, you use the bye well and you adjust. And as you were talking about, Kyle, you self-scout, you figure out what's going wrong, and you look like an entirely different team from that point on. And that is certainly possible. And I think if there's one piece of reason to be optimistic, it is you have the bye coming up. And generally, after buys, post-buys, the Niners are very, very, very good. That goes hand in hand with the fact that they're not very good in September and October and very, very good in November and December, and they've also had, let's not forget, a pretty good amount of success in January as well. 888-957-9570. Up next is Nick, who's in Berkeley. What's up, Nick? You run overtime at 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I was at the game today, man, and not going for it on fourth down was just ridiculous. Not going for the two-point conversion was just a complete failure. I mean, like, dude, you got to, if you want to change things, like, the definition of insanity, we all know what the definition of insanity is, and it's like insanity. But I'm going to tell you right now, not having McCaffrey out there puts a lot of more pressure on Purdy. Jennings is out. He's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. We didn't have him. And then like all the off-season stuff, and it's not so much. It's a culmination of things, so it's not panic time yet. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, man, they can be better, and they need to be better. But the whole thing to me is, And I'm going back, to when Harbaugh was in the Super Bowl, you're on the 2-yard line, you got 4 plays to get in, and you don't even put Frank Gore to run in 2 after he just ran a 43-yard and got pushed out of bounds at the 2 when you should have slowed down and tried to run in the end zone. I'll never forget that. You know what I'm saying? Then against the Rams, we drop an interception, and then we're on their 43 on 4th and 1 or 2. We don't go for it, and we get a punt. Our punter gets smashed, and then one of our players gets concussed by a cheap shot, and then Greenlaw gets called for that stupid penalty for taunting, and then the Rams come back and beat us. And then again we're up 10 in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, blow that lead. And then the last Super Bowl, blow that. Greenlaw goes out. It's dude, they're just running to where Greenlaw will be locking everything down. We underestimate his effect. But the whole thing is we're choking. The bottom line is they're choking. In big time games, they're choking. They're not getting it done. And this goes back to Harbaugh, dude, the Giants game. You know what I'm saying? The only time that the Giants got past the 50-yard line, I was at that game too. I'm going back to Harbaugh.
All right, let's go.
Back, I mean, dude, looks like you put a rookie in there. He drops 2 punts in a row, and that's the only time the Giants got past the 50-yard line the entire game.
Yeah. Hey, Nick. I mean, as a Niner fan myself, I feel your pain and I understand everything that you're going through because I think we've all been there. All of that old stuff has no bearing on what's happening right now. I feel you. I think you're spot on about Dre Greenlaw and the Niners defense. What was interesting today was the Niners played, first of all, they played a lot of base defense, which means there's 3 linebackers out there, which meant Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, but also D. Winters. In the second half, they played more nickel, 5 DBs on the field, and only 2 linebackers. And I didn't see a lot of Devondre Campbell in the second half. So maybe one adjustment the Niners have made is relying a little bit more on D. Winters, finally.
Yeah, look at that. And I thought they played, save for a couple of plays there, I thought they played really well defensively.
Yeah.
So
there's a positive, maybe.
Yeah, look at D. Winters, huh? Big A. Let's get
Malik Mustafa.
Bring it up for D. Winters. Yeah, I'm not just I get, like you said, I get as a fan the frustration going back a decade. But I'm not putting a Kyle Williams fumble 13 years ago on Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, or what happened in the fourth quarter in New Orleans against the Ravens.
Yeah, I can't get there. I get it though. I get it. I understand.
I feel your pain.
But I'm not assessing Kyle Shanahan on a Ted Ginn injury.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's go out to Craig in San Leandro. Craig, we got a couple minutes for you here before we hit a quick break. What's up, Craig? You're on Overtime at 95.7 The Game.
Well, look, I've been following the 49ers for 64 years, and this stuff is pretty simple to me. When your offense is not very good, when your defense is not very good, when your special teams are not very good, that means your team is not a very good team. It's pretty simple to me. Now, I heard you say something about an insane stat earlier. I just read a stat. I want you guys to tell me if this is true. The 49ers have the worst record when trailing by 8+ points in the fourth quarter. They are 0-40. Followed by the Panthers, the Seahawks, and the Colts. 0-40 when trailing by 8+ points in the fourth quarter. Is that true?
I don't know. Where'd you hear that stat, Craig?
It might come from the NFL website. I saw it on Facebook.
I'm not
40.
That's going to be a hard one. It's going to be a hard one to confirm, Craig. I know there's so many statistics about Niners with leads, Niners trailing in fourth quarters, and Shanahan generally when you fall behind, Shanahan's not near the top. That's a very uber specific one that I'm not sure I can confirm. But
yeah, they've only lost 54 games with Kyle Shanahan, so I don't know if in 40 of those they've been down by 8 or more.
In the fourth quarter?
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that seems like a high number.
But either way, I remember this is a big Kyle Shanahan thing, right?
Yeah.
They don't come back, But I saw somebody do a big breakdown of this one time, and it was whatever thing he was really bad at. The best coach in the league at that thing
not very good either.
Was also not very good.
You're trailing by 8 points in a fourth quarter. Generally, you're going to lose.
I think there is something to right. Yeah, I think there is something to the inability to close out games when ahead. I absolutely think there's something to that. Maybe it's the way he calls plays. Maybe it goes back to what we were talking about, trying not to lose. But, you get people who say, oh, if he had just run it in the Falcons Super Bowl, but then you get people who say like, oh, he's too aggressive and he didn't run it enough in the Chiefs Super Bowl. It's just, it's like he's either too conservative or he's too aggressive.
Yeah.
And it gets picked apart and prodded. So I'm sure there's something to it, but I don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't have a firm answer.
There was a stat from earlier this week. We got to hit a break, but I'll find it during the break and I'll share it with you guys when we come back. It is a relatively eye-opening statistic about Kyle Shanahan and about when he's trailing. And we can get to that coming up in just a little bit. We do have one more segment with you here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. We still have to hear from Kyle Shanahan. We'll give out game balls at the end as well. And we're open for your calls, 888-957-9570. More OT next with Kyle, Sterling, and Grandy here on 95.7 The Game.
Jaden Hicks picks it off in the end zone.
Now back to Overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Yeah, that was Kevin Burkhardt on Fox. His partner, Tom Brady, apparently not allowed to criticize because he's now a member or a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Also not allowed to sit in on the production meetings with coaches. Can't go to practices.
Can't be at another team's facility.
But he said a couple of times on some Brock Purdy throws, that was a below average throw.
Dude, that was a just okay throw. Wait, what?
What's going on here?
Just say it was bad.
We all agree there were some bad Brock Purdy throws. To look at some of the overthrows, the interceptions, bad decisions, and the highest paid analyst in football to just say with a straight face, that was a subpar throw, Kevin.
Not great. Didn't love that. Didn't love that decision. Subpar decision. Yeah, man. The Brock Purdy specifically, and I know we got a couple of calls to get to, but with Brock specifically today, one game sample is not enough to undo everything he's done since he became the starter.
Yes.
But it was bad enough that I'm like, I'm filing this performance away. I'm putting this one in the back of my mind because there were enough plays that were just head-scratchingly poor or below average, to borrow a phrase. there were enough plays that were way below average that definitely, like I said, I'm putting this one. The Minnesota game, for example, don't care. This one though, I'm watching to see how he bounces back.
You agree, Sterling?
I mean, we walked into this year with, I think the stat was Brock has never lost to the same team twice consecutively.
Uh-oh.
And he's lost to the Vikings twice in a row, and he's lost to the Chiefs twice in a row. Now, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Nothing. Brian Flores is calling an amazing year out there for the Vikings, and Spagnuolo is probably the best defensive coordinator in football the last 10 years, next to Bill Belichick. But, yeah, I mean, Brock was terrible. There's no way to put it. This is probably his worst game minus that Ravens Christmas Day game, which small hands in the rain doesn't equate to a great football game for Brock Purdy, but this is probably his worst game as a starter. And you credit the Chiefs for sure, but he's just really bad. He was subpar. He was really subpar today.
Again, and the weapons, the injuries, I understand all of that. And that's why I'm not he stinks now. It's not it. That's not where I'm going with this. But when you start stacking up at the end of this year, when you start stacking up evidence of, hey, are you paying this guy $60+ million a year? This is the kind of game where you would love to see him come up with some individually brilliant plays. Patrick Mahomes getting it done. Xavier Worthy was out for a while. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been their number one receiver, he went down early in the game and he figured out ways to just make enough plays to drag the offense across the finish line. And Brock didn't. And that's the thing that separates the elite guys from the second tier where I think Brock is.
Yeah.
So again, maybe he changes it. It's one game against a really good defense without all of his top weapons, save for George Kittle. So I totally, like I said, I'm ready to have this one erased pretty quickly as well. But man, would have loved to have seen him come up with some more above average plays today.
Yeah. Some more, yes. Yes. I would like to see that.
This is a game where his detractors will point to and say, no doubt. That's Brock Purdy.
Yes, absolutely.
Which, that's unfair. Brock has played great the majority of the year, but this is a game where, I was with Dan Devone yesterday on the air, and he talked about this is going to be Brock's coming out party for the national media. And it's it was the exact opposite of that, Dan. And I think Purdy has played in playoff games and been amazing in those as well.
He's already had his coming out party.
To me, has already happened. Yeah. But to Dan's defense, I guess, you're playing Mahomes, you're playing Spagnuolo. Can you beat the team that you lost to in February, went to overtime against, which should have won that game? And you should have, you really had a really good chance to win this game. Mahomes playing his worst ball of his entire career. While their defense is great, I mean, they lost Juju Smith-Schuster, and Worthy was out, and Rice is gone, and Brown's gone. This was their best shot to take a swing, and they just bunted, and they were out. It's come on.
To Dan's point there, I don't think this is a coming out party, but it was a chance to wrestle the narrative back.
Sure.
And to say, yo, he outplayed Patrick Mahomes and got the 49ers to 4-3. Dang, look at Brock Purdy. No, Deebo Samuel was sick, and no Juwan Jennings and no Christian McCaffrey. He went in against Steve Spagnuolo, and he had a chance to really take a hold of that, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Sterling, the Ravens game last year, or maybe Kyle, maybe you both have. As maybe 1A, 1B, this game and that game as Purdy's worst as a starter. For me, the Ravens game, far better for Brock than this one. Like the Ravens game, they moved the ball the whole game. There were chunk after chunk after chunk. The interceptions, yes, they're interceptions, but kind of fluky tips and batted high up into the air, ultimately picked off. Not saying that Brock was great in that game, but it was much better than
players
this.
Are making plays in that one. He's just throwing it right to defenders.
Yes, exactly.
Agree.
Exactly. And I agree with you as well. And people had been using that Ravens game as the example of, see, Purdy is an elite. But, okay, whatever. You can think that. I flatly disagree. This game, you don't have, like, excuses for. You can't just excuse this one away. Exactly. Like, this one was just bad.
You can't just throw it out, though, to Kyle's point. You have to file this away and say,
no doubt.
Maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, no.
To make matters worse, sorry, I know. To make matters worse, his two biggest completions were not great throws.
Yeah, they both could have been touchdowns. They both were touchdowns.
Should have been touchdowns.
If they were good throws. Yeah, no doubt. So even when it was good, it wasn't great. It was above average, but it could have been a whole lot better on some of those big throws down the field. 888-957-9570. CJ's in Santa Clara. CJ, what's up? You're on Overtime on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, CJ, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. What's up?
CJ?
Hey, look, you know what? This is I would have called this game the pink slip game, right?
The what?
Let me explain. The pink slip game. I'm explaining to you. You know, you finance a car for 60 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't own it while you're financing it. The bank owns it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after that final payment, you get the pink slip, and you own the car, right? Today, Patrick Mahomes owns the 49ers. Andy Reid is living rent-free in Kyle Shanahan's head, and Patrick Mahomes owns the 49ers. They got the pink slip. You get it?
Yeah, we got it, CJ. I mean, I think they might have already felt that way after beating them in the Super Bowl a couple of times.
Should have at least.
Like,
yeah.
Like, let's pretend the Niners win this game today. Is Patrick Mahomes losing sleep over losing a regular season game to drop his team to check's notes 5-1?
Oh yeah, no.
Still being 2-time defending Super Bowl champions.
I think they'd be okay.
I think they'd be fine, and they would still hold the trump card over the 49ers. They'd hold a couple of trump cards over the 49ers.
Need Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid to race for picks. That's what I would like to see. Hey, Shannon's winning that one.
Speaking of Kyle Shanahan, we haven't heard from him yet. Let's do it. Kyle Shanahan's post-game press conference. We got about 20 more minutes with you. Let's hear from Shanahan. We'll react. We'll hand out game balls, and then we'll get on out of here. Kyle Shanahan post-game today. Niners fall to the Chiefs 28-18. Here's Shanahan post-game today.
But does it begin to, in your mind, accumulate emotionally, taking all these injuries?
Yeah, I mean, it always does for anyone associated with NFL. I know a lot of teams deal with that. Not every team, but we're dealing with it hard right now, and it got worse yesterday, so it's tough. Got worse today.
I mean, obviously, Brock's dealing with inexperienced receivers, Ricky Pearsall's first game, I think 3 interceptions. How did you think Brock dealt with all that?
I mean, we didn't do anything really good on offense. You know, I know he'd love to have all 3 of those picks back, so Brock's been playing unbelievable this year. Done some good things in offense this year, but today wasn't that day.
That second interception, was that a miscommunication, or did Brock just miss the throw?
No, he just missed the throw.
Obviously not the result you guys wanted, but kind of excluding the performance just for Ricky Pearsall to make it back onto an NFL field today, what did that mean for you as his coach and for him?
I mean, we kind of celebrated that almost all week with him because it was great to have him back, and he looked great in practice, and he was going to get eased in a little today. It changed a little bit with Deebo going out, then it changed a bunch with Aiyuk going out, so he had to do more than we expected today, and I was proud of him for handling it. Great to have him back.
Did Deebo get the sickness this morning?
Yeah, this morning. Yeah.
Right, but he just vomiting?
Throat, stomach things, just real fatigued. struggled to breathe, couldn't catch his breath, and so he kept trying to fight through it. But once he was struggling with the breathing and everything, that we had to shut him down.
Seems to struggle with deep man-to-man coverage in this game. Are there things you can do as a play caller, play designer to help scheme people open against those particular looks?
Yeah, that's all we tried to do. Thought a couple guys did pretty good on man. Thought we got a good curl pump. Their Jake at the end. I thought BA had a real good one that we just didn't go to. Had one of the picks on it. Ronnie did on the other pick. So there was definitely times guys beat man, and sometimes they didn't.
Looking at the defensive performance, Kyle, what did you see in terms of how Mahomes was able to torment them again?
I thought the defense today, compared to everything else, gave us a chance. I thought they settled them down, but 4 or 5 in the red zone was the biggest thing. They scored pretty much every time they got down there. Mahomes, just keeping plays alive with his legs. That 30 scramble that he did, and then extended it by the sidelines, which we see over and over, and everyone thinks they're ready for it, but then he gets another team again with it. So hats off to him. He's an unbelievable player. But we didn't play good as a team today.
Kyle, tough loss, and you have one more game before the bye week. What was the message that you delivered to the team? What do you want them to take away from today? I
want them to say less today. There's no way to sugarcoat that. We got our ass kicked today. Lots of reasons for it, but those are things that they don't need to sit and think about today. We'll address all those tomorrow. We'll get together. We'll go through the truth of the whole tape and be hard on each other and find a way to put it to bed so we can come out here and make sure we put our best foot forward and find a way to get a win versus Dallas.
Following up on Tim's question, how much can you expect Brock to elevate himself given the circumstances?
On whose question?
Tim's question is about Brock and how he played given what was happening with the rest of the
Yeah, Brock elevates himself a lot. Regardless of whether guys are down or up. Brock's been doing that every game. He had some good plays today, but just overall, him along with all of us on offense, we didn't do well. When you do miss your best players or some of them and they go out with injuries, it makes it harder on everyone. And you hope that you can overcome that with some stuff with some of our other guys like Brock, who is very capable of doing that, but just wasn't his best day.
Is there continued frustration with special teams and what can be done to kind of clean some of the stuff up?
I can't hear you.
Is there continued frustration with special teams and what can be done to clean some of the stuff up?
We're going to keep coaching them. We're going to keep putting pressure on us as coaches, pressure on the players. As you do get guys down, you can't just try the next guy, so some of these guys are getting their opportunities because of injuries, and we got to make sure that we get better at this. There's certain things that we have gotten better at, but that big punt return, mainly the one that stuck out to me, they're getting too much, and we just got to continue to work at it and not ignore it, which we're not.
How long do you guys expect to be without Juwan Jennings?
I'm really hoping to get him back this week.
Chiefs had some success running some screen plays. Why do you think you struggled defending those plays, given that you've seen them before?
You see screens every week. That's what everybody does. Hits a couple screens in the game. They got past our D-line, sucked us up on that. I think they got us in a couple zone coverages where guys were out of there, and you need one guy to make the tackle, and that guy misses, and it opens it up. But they hit some good screens. It's what they do best, one of the best things they do, and they got us on them.
Is there any reason to believe Brandon doesn't have a torn ACL?
That's what it looks like, but we don't know for sure. Just doing the tests and everything with our hands and with the trainers and stuff, all that. So that's what we fear. That's what it looks like, but we've been wrong before, so praying that we are.
Past games don't mean much for this game, but what they were doing defensively, was it similar to some things you saw in the Super Bowl, or was Spagnuolo doing even other things?
No, it's what they do in the Super Bowl. It's what they did in the 19 games before that. It's what they've done all the games this year. So they got a good scheme. They mix up a lot of two-read coverage, a lot of quarters pressure, a lot of man coverage, and a lot of man pressure. So they kind of roll those throughout the game, and they're good at all of them.
Carl, there was a lot of emotion going into this game, and everyone can say it's just another game. It's not going to make up for the Super Bowl, but clearly it was important. What do you do now to kind of be able to put this behind you?
That's why I try not to make it about that stuff. Obviously, when you got to, we all know how much last year hurt. So, when you're studying that tape all week and stuff, it does bring up emotions and everything. And, you would love to beat someone, but if we beat them today, that wasn't going to change anything with the Super Bowl either. We would love to do it. We haven't been able to beat them, so that's something that would feel really good. But I'm not going to make that more than it is, so we tried not to make it more than it is all week, whether we won or lost. We knew we were going to come in Monday and review it and know we were going to have a big game versus Dallas this week before the bye week, and our goal is to be leading our division after this bye week. I didn't even watch what happened today. I think Seattle won, but we got to keep it close here and find a way to get a win next week.
It's a hypothetical, but if Brandon does have an ACL, could you see being aggressive on the trade market for a wide receiver?
I don't know. I mean, depends what's available, depends the risk and reward with everything. I mean, we look into everything in every situation, but got to balance all that out. All right, thanks, guys.
Well, that's Kyle Shanahan post-game today after the Niners fell to the Chiefs 28-18 at Levi Stadium today. The 49ers now 3-4 on the season. A lot there to run through. One thing that stood out to me, talking about Brock Purdy's interceptions, and it was the second one, I believe, the overthrow of Ronnie Bell. He was asked, Shanahan was that just a miscommunication, Purdy expecting one route, Ronnie Bell running the other, or was that just a misthrow, a misfire by Brock? And he said that was just a bad throw by Brock.
Yikes.
If that was the case, and that was the route that was supposed to be run, that might be the worst throw of Brock Purdy's career.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Yeah. On throws where he's not getting his arm hit or weren't tipped at the line or something. Yeah, man, he was nobody. And Kevin Burkhardt even said on the call, way too high. Like he said as much on the call. Yeah, man, that's tough. That's really, really tough. And maybe Shanahan will change his mind after seeing the tape or talking to Bell and Purdy about it. But that's if all the throws, that's probably the one Brock wants back the most then. That's the first down. That's an easy throw.
My takeaway was when they asked Kyle about special teams, what's going to happen, Kyle? We're going to continue to coach him.
I would hope so.
That's the problem. It's the coach who got back there making the plays. Like, the problem is the coach, Kyle. Not Kyle Shanahan, but Brian Schneider.
About special teams, like, no change is going to happen now. If a change is going to happen, it will happen in a week when the Niners are going into the bye. Like, as soon as they didn't make a change last week after Thursday in Seattle when they had kind of a mini bye, you circle after week 9 or after week 8, week 9 when you're off. That's the time to make a change. If they don't make a change then, I don't think they're going to make a change.
Back-breaking kick returns, back-breaking punt returns, ankle spraining kick returns, shoulder dislocating kick returns. Apparently it doesn't matter. Brian Schneider's going to be out there, baby.
What does he have on Kyle Shanahan?
It is ridiculous, dude.
Man.
God. All right, we got one more call to get to. Then we'll hand out game balls as we close into the end here of overtime on this Sunday evening. Up next is Rocky in Vallejo. Rocky, bring us home. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? Man, this is very therapeutic, this show. I love it, man. Excellent show. You guys are on the money. This loss is 100% on Brock Purdy. I watched the game very closely. The offensive line did not have a great first half. We know that. Aaron Banks and that tight end double team blocked and missed it. We saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Second half, offensive line stepped up. Brock Purdy didn't step up. Throw after throw, it was the Jimmy oh-no throws all over again. PTSD from Jimmy Garoppolo. I felt that today, first time with Brock Purdy. This is the worst game of his career. I mean, this loss is 100% on him. Horrible loss. The defense played enough. 15 didn't have a great game, but he outplayed Brock Purdy 1,000 times. And this loss, he has to own this loss. This loss is on him. He needs to step up, rebound, and take over the Cowboys next Sunday night when the whole America is watching. Dominate the Cowboys, come back, go on the bye, get some players back. We will be back. It's not the end of the world, man.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks, Rocky.
Yeah. That's why I like, this is obviously terribly disappointing, and top to bottom, the 49ers were not very good today. But if they go beat the heck out of the Cowboys, if they beat the Cowboys 28-10 and go into the bye week, we're going to be here on overtime going, great win against Dallas, who was off their bye week. Now you go into your bye week. Now you can make some changes. You get Tampa Bay coming out of the bye, and you start to talk yourself into it. It's hard to get there right now.
If you guaranteed me a split, if you guaranteed a split of Chiefs and Cowboys going into the bye, I know no one wants to hear this. Lose to the Chiefs, beat the Cowboys. At this point, seeding is going to matter a ton.
Yeah.
Conference wins matter so much more than non-conference games. I don't really care about the emotions of the Chiefs.
Have you considered the vibes,
though? Imagine losing to this Cowboys team at home on Sunday night, however.
Yeah, right. Because if you beat the Chiefs, we're in here going, we're awesome. They got
back.
One back. The Niners are, and then you go lose to the Cowboys going into the bye. It's very somber. Whereas you flip that. They're 3-4 right now. They beat the Cowboys to go into the bye week 4-4. Yeah. So that's why
it's of course an imaginary scenario, but you want to win your NFC games.
Yeah, that's why you can't go nuclear yet. But man, you lose to Dallas on Sunday night.
Then we can go nuclear.
We're going to be pretty close. It's going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
I think Brock, to the caller's point, I think he will eat this game. Brock is one of those quarterbacks and players that would say, "Yep, I didn't play great, my fault, and I'll be better against the Cowboys on Sunday." Which I think we all believe in Brock. He's not going to throw 3 picks against the Dallas Cowboys, and like they said, if he does, we're going nuclear on the air next Sunday. But but does this loss feel worse simply because of the history between these two teams? Like the moments they've had, Jimmy G's torn ACL in 2018, back-to-back Super Bowl losses, CMC's debut. It's just that it feels like at every monumental thing for San Francisco, the Chiefs are always there. Today was Pearsall's debut, and it seems like Aiyuk tears the ACL. It's like every time you look across the sideline, it's the Kansas City Chiefs giving you the heartbreak or being on the side of like, it's you, and we're losing, and we're having guys injured. To me, it felt like, while, yes, Mark, you're right, beat the Dallas Cowboys, NFC games are much more important. I think why this one hurts so much is simply because of the history here. Like, you want to beat Kansas City. You want to get over the hump, put that mental barrier behind you and say, oh, finally got past KC, beat Mahomes, beat Spags, beat Reed. Wow, we can actually do this. And now we're sitting back like, we're never going to beat these guys. And they're always going to be in our way. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, DC is. It's always going to be us, and then on top, the Kansas City Chiefs.
I hear you, and I get where you're coming from. For me, though, I'm almost kind of numb to the Chiefs, and losing to the Chiefs. Like, I'd be more embarrassed losing to the Cowboys than losing to the Chiefs.
Yeah,
that feels worse to me. Even if forget about the conference record part of it.
For me,
it's the Chiefs. They've always beat you. They got Mahomes. They got Spagnuolo. Like, they have your number. You lose to them, sure. Whatever.
To me, it's the reason this stinks is the Chiefs are a bona fide Super Bowl contender. Back-to-back defending champs. If you're betting on a team to win it all right now, you're probably betting on the Chiefs, right? Right? Probably?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't played well.
Right, but you just kind of know. Right, but I'm disappointed because I thought the 49ers would at least come out and play well. Where you go, even if they lose, it's all right. Yeah, it's what you guys were just saying. Yeah, it's Mahomes. They just beat you, but it's not that they beat you. It's that you got embarrassed. And in this game where you could have looked like a Super Bowl contender, like, look, we belong in the conversation with the Chiefs. They just don't. They just look like they don't. And that for me is why this was so disappointing.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It was, we got to do game balls, and then we'll get on out of here. Let's start on the offense. Since it was this kind of game and it's relatively slim pickings, if you want, feel free to choose from both teams. If you want to. We'll start on offense. Kyle, why don't you get us started? Who gets your game ball?
Easy work. Ricky Pearsall. I'm taking the layup, guys. Shout out to Ricky Pearsall. He had 3 catches, 21 yards. Don't even know. It doesn't even matter. The fact that he suited up was a huge deal. And then he got thrust into action. He actually played pretty early before Brandon Aiyuk got hurt. Ricky Pearsall finishes the day, 5 targets, 3 catches, 21 yards. Brock Purdy was looking for him on the 2-point conversion there at the end of the game. Good to see him back on the field. Shout out to Rick.
And Sterling, what about you on offense?
How about the 4th-round rookie as well, Jacob Cowan?
Let's go, Jake.
As well as Pearsall, had the big 41-yarder. Could have been a touchdown. Darn you, Brock Purdy, but 2 catches, 51 or 50 yards. They're going to have to rely on these guys, Pearsall and Cowan. They're young, but they are fast. They're quick. They're explosive. Let the young guys cook, and hopefully today they can build upon it. So I will go Jacob Cowan.
Okay, I like it. A couple of youngsters getting some recognition. I'll go with maybe the wily vet of the group, George Kittle. I mean, George Kittle was like the last guy standing from this pass-catching group, and he was awesome. 6 catches for 92 yards, had a 41-yard completion, as we've talked about. If Purdy leads him better, it goes for a touchdown. Kittle was really good in this game, and the Niners needed him, and he stepped up. Led the team in receiving yards by a mile, almost doubled up anybody else. Kittle was, again, the last guy standing, and he was really good in that one. Okay, we managed to get 3 offensive players on the Niners to give game balls to. Awesome. Let's turn to the defense. We'll go in reverse order. I'll go first for this one. This is an easy one for me, guys. Actually, I'm not gonna pick Lenore. I'll leave it up for you guys. I gotta give love to another rookie, and it's Malik Mustafa.
Yeah, man.
Mustafa was amazing in this game. There was a play in the first quarter where there was an inside pitch to Kareem Hunt. I think it was to the left side, and Mustafa, of course, lining up as the safety. He's like 10, 15 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. He comes racing downhill, dives right at Kareem's Hunt, like his knees, wraps him up, tackles him. He came like shot out of a cannon from nowhere, managed to find his way through all the blockers and all the traffic in front of him. It was an awesome play. He had a really big hit on Xavier Worthy end around. It looked like it was going to go for like 20 yards and a touchdown. In fact, I was watching the game here and said, oh, that's a touchdown. And then Mustafa came out of nowhere and it hit Worthy hard. And in fact, hit him so hard he had to leave the game for a little bit. He was a little shook up by that hit by Mustafa. The only downside, only bad moment for Mustafa today was the Patrick Mahomes touchdown run. He lowered his shoulder and ran right through Mustafa. But Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He has moments like that. Overall, Mustafa was good. He gets a game ball for me on the defense. Sterling, what about you? A game ball on defense?
How about Kalia Davis?
Yeah.
Didn't have the biggest game in regards to sacks or quarterback hits, but, the offense is kind of stagnant for San Francisco. You're sitting back saying, here comes Kansas City, and he bats the ball out of the air and picks the ball off himself. It's a great story. 6th-round pick a couple years ago. Tears his ACL, kind of a non-factor the first few years in the NFL. Finally active off the IR this year. Hargrave goes down. Kalia Davis steps up. What a big interception early to keep the Chiefs offense at bay in that first half.
That was an awesome play.
Yeah.
That really was.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Bring us home, Kyle. Defensive game ball.
I would like to honorable mention first Nick Bosa. He was a menace today, but I got to go with Deommodore Lenore. He was outstanding. And he's very quickly, like every game, there are 2 to 3 plays that jump out and you go, man, Demo is going to get paid. Whether it's pass breakup, whether it's making a tackle. He had an interception on the play where Xavier Worthy fell down. He had another play where they took a deep shot to Xavier Worthy where he step for step with him. Not many defensive backs, not many defensive players, I should say, on the 49ers playing better than Deommodore Lenore this year.
Yeah. He was really good in this game, and it's getting to a point where the Niners are going to pay him big-time money this offseason. It's also getting to a point where you might just say, is he their best corner, period, on the team right now?
Yeah.
Seems like it.
I don't think is it close? I don't think it's close.
Mooney Ward was actually kind of good today.
Nice little PBU after getting
honestly wasn't even really he was almost, you barely even saw him or heard from him on the broadcast, which is generally a good thing for a defensive back.
First time all year.
You would expect so with whatever the hell the Chiefs are doing with their receivers. What did they? Noah Gray, Samaje Perine were their 2 leading receivers
in terms of yards.
66 and 22 yards. Travis Kelce, like Mecole Hardman, only had 1 catch.
Yeah.
Corners didn't have to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes threw for 154 yards. Yet the Chiefs put up 28 points somehow.
Tough.
Which
That's a
does not make a lot of sense. All right. That'll do it for overtime today here on 95.7 The Game. Thanks so much for tuning in and for all the calls. It was a rough day, but we hope we could talk you through it here on overtime on 95.7 The Game. Appreciate everyone for tapping in with us here on this Sunday. It's a hell of a evening for sports right now, despite the Niners loss. We appreciate you guys all for tuning in. For Kyle Madsen, for Sterling Bennett, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in. Niners fall 28-18 and are now 3-4 on the season. We'll talk next time here on 95.7 The Game.